and he hasn't. But they have done things like they've found testosterone capsules and things like that in the flat that Mo Farah shared with Alberto Salazar for a period of time as he was training for the London 2012 Olympics. Again, never failed a drugs test, so you can't say anything about that. But to be honest with you, the way that Mo Farah has gone about reacting to a lot of these allegations, claiming that they're racist, saying that, you know, he's seen this all before with the likes of Raheem Sterling and all that, I don't really think that Mo Farah is capable of getting rid of this massive black cloud that's hanging over his head, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Interesting. Look, what do you guys think? As always, 0208 70 20 558 on WhatsApp. You can call us as well. We are on YouTube, I believe. Just go onto YouTube and type in Love Sport Radio, and you should see us live on there. Or you can get in touch on the socials as well, at Love Sport Radio.
I'm quite intrigued to see what people make of our fashion choices today, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, we get a lot of people get dug out, don't they?
We do. We've got a few regulars that tune in, and there's a couple in particular that give you a lot of stick.
Yeah, there are. And I've asked my mum to stop commenting on the YouTube channel, actually. I just want to throw ahead to something that we're doing after 9 o'clock. So after 9 o'clock, we're doing a bit of a feature on whether or not Gareth Southgate should become our Prime Minister. Okay? I personally think that he should. He's a good-looking guy. People tend to vote for decent-looking chaps. He is pretty good in terms of organisation, of course, which is what we need in this country. He's a cracking diplomat, stamps racism out. You know, he can organise the troops. I think Gareth Southgate should be our next Prime Minister. I think he's the man that this country needs at the moment.
Did we put a poll out yesterday? Because we were going to put a poll out.
We did. We're going to put the results out later on. But later on in the show, we are going to be having a chat with a political guru as to whether or not if Gareth Southgate run for Prime Minister, he would win. But we want to hear from you as well. 0208 70 20 558. Why do you think Gareth Southgate would or would not make a good Prime Minister? 17 minutes to 7.
Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it,
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A spokesman said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you mess with the USA, I guarantee there'll be hell to pay.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. We've got some big guests coming up today, I must say. We've got the new manager of Leyton Orient due to be on the show. Carl Fletcher will be joining us later on. We've also got the Cambridge goalkeeper, Bulgarian goalkeeper, Dimitar Mitov as well coming on. I'm excited to speak to him, get his thoughts on, of course, what he's up to at the moment. But, of course, it's still a big story on the back pages in regards to the fallout from Monday night that, of course, we will touch on in a bit more detail. But, of course, it's this time in the show. Do you know what it is, Patrick?
I think I do.
Go on.
Is it time for a little bit of this?
It's business. It's business time. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it's time for business. It's business time.
Oh, he brought us back early.
He did, really early.
Wow.
I'm not used to that. We've got a new producer today. We've got a guest, a star producer.
We used to have a new producer.
Well, who knows what could happen over the coming hours. Mr. Chris Bailey, founder of financialorbit.com, is on the line. Morning, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm just pleased to be in the same company, the same breath as the Leyton Orient manager and the Cambridge goalkeeper. I mean, I've dreamt of these things basically. But I'm here. I'm living the dream.
You are, Patrick. What do we think? Levels of sarcasm out of 10? Are we?
Yeah,
what do you
he's
reckon?
up there.
I think he's up there.
No, I actually think seriously. It's kind of normally my kind of billing so Z-list that I couldn't even. I'd be non-league. I would be non-league. That's the equivalent. So I'm just happy just to be playing, tapping the ball around with the big boys at the moment.
Well, look, we're all at a similar level here, Chris. That works fantastic for me. There's lots going on in the world at the moment. I hear the UK housing market is warped.
Oh, as if we didn't know that already. My goodness, what is it? Average house price in London, 400 and something thousand, 200 and whatever thousand around the whole country. Yeah, UK housing market is clearly warped. We are seeing some price falls in London and sort of a few small price rises in the north, sort of trying to balance things out a bit. But at this rate of progress, we'll be way beyond the Brexit debate at some point in the 22nd century before it actually equalises. And of course, the rental market's all over the place too. Even though I see a report from Zoopla out yesterday, which seems to think that average earnings are going up more than rental prices in the last couple of years, which sounds good. But again, you only need to go and have a look what the average rental price is to know that it remains very warped. So, yeah, strange times, but we all have to live somewhere.
Indeed, very true. And Pret have brought out a vegan BLT, which we're trying to figure out what that means and what the B and the L and the T stand for.
Well, apparently they're going to change the name from BLT to VLT, which makes a bit more sense, doesn't it? The sort of the vegan or vegetarian bit is actually technically it's vegan. I know there's a slight difference in terminology, but instead of the bacon as you'd normally get in a BLT, you get apparently a layer of mushrooms. You sort of layer the mushrooms to get sort of the texture of meat. Apparently, anyway, it's been launched in various veggie Pret shops. There's not that many of them, but they're being launched in the couple of those around in London shortly, and I'm sure it's very nice. I probably would try it actually. No doubt it wouldn't be it'd be quite expensive because this layering of mushrooms thing apparently is quite a tricky thing to do. But yeah, sounds all right to me. I mean, after the vegan sausage roll at Greg's, just to give a bit of equivalence on the old casual dining sort of places, anything is possible, isn't it?
Very true. Your thoughts on that, Patrick? Is that a little bit of you?
No, absolutely not. I'm afraid I would feel conned and cheated. I once accidentally, I've done a few bits and bobs like that actually. I thought I'd brought a salmon salad the other day, wasn't it? It was jackfruit.
Oh,
what the heck is that all about?
Oh, no.
That's weird. It looks like pulled pork. It's nonsense. Yeah, loads of that. It doesn't really do too well with me, I'm afraid.
Oh, fair enough. Netflix has got some competition, I believe.
Yeah, well, Netflix is facing it. Obviously, Netflix is pretty omnipresent. Lots of people have got it. But you've got all these streaming channels coming out. People from like Disney, for example, launching their channel in November. You've got Apple doing the same thing, among many others, of course. So that the whole content streaming wars is well and truly on. Netflix actually had their numbers out yesterday. I'm going to sort of cut you guys into a bit of financial logic here. So get this. Netflix basically they burnt through $2 billion over the last year. They actually reduced or missed the number of new subscribers they were hoping for over the next 3 months. They're hoping for 9 million, but they reckon it's going to be about 7. What do you reckon the shares did yesterday in the States, late doors after the numbers came out? With those metrics, saying they were good or bad, you'd have thought they'd have sort of plummeted but actually they went up. So I'm trying to get my head around that. 20 odd years experience in the markets, just once again, egg on face, things happen, without you thinking about it. So there you go. I'm sort of perplexed by that, shall we say?
This never makes sense to me. This is it, where the results come out that are nowhere near, like 2 million off, and the spending being as high as it is.
2 billion. No, but 2 billion off.
2 million subscribers.
And 2 million off on the numbers. That's right.
2 million subscribers off. So surely, who then dictates that? Or maybe this is a deep question and probably not the time to do it on radio. I appreciate, but who dictates
this is a deep question. We can do the 1 hour treatise on it, or we can do the 10-second version.
10 seconds.
The 10-second version is fear and greed, and basically people got too fearful and now they're greedy.
Right.
And tomorrow they might be greedy and then fearful.
Right. So it's something that you know a lot about, fear and greed.
Fear and greed. Yeah, massively.
We'll go into detail on that.
Yeah,
That's two subjects you are an expert on. Chris, as always.
Well, Patrick is Patrick is fearful of having a jackfruit sandwich or something.
Yeah.
But what happens if it was Patrick fruit one?
Yeah, I'd go for a little bit of that. I'd go for a little bit of that.
You're playing with his ego.
Yeah,
Very, very
I imagine
clever.
it'd be quite a fatty fruit, though. Quite fatty around the middle.
Doesn't exist, but it sounds good, doesn't it? Perhaps that's a new idea for some, casual dining chain.
There you go, Chris.
Just
as always,
putting it out there.
Appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we'll speak to you tomorrow.
Sounds like
great stuff. Chris Bailey there, founder of financialorbit.com. Don't do yourself down, mate. I told you it's dormant, relaxed muscle.
Dormant, relaxed muscle.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Absolutely.
You are powerful.
Yes.
So powerful.
It's in there somewhere, isn't it?
So much potential for power.
Yeah, somewhere deep inside me is a thin person screaming to get out, but I just keep him sedated with chocolate. So that's it.
Fantastic. Lots to discuss, and who better to discuss the rugby with than our very own
Matt
producer?
Dawson. Wait, no, Johnny Wilkinson.
Oh,
no, wait, what?
We got one of them coming on.
Lawrence Delalio.
We have producer Guy, who is stepping in today, our guest producer, star
Good morning,
producer.
chaps. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, the big news this morning, of course, in the rugby is that we've had our team named for the big quarter-final on Saturday morning, our time, that is. Big story, big news is George Ford's been dropped. The fly half has been dropped. The fly half has been in such good form, man of the match in, I think, at least 2 of England's games so far.
I suppose the big question with Ford is he in reverse at the moment?
I've just been watching goalkeepers, Ben Foster among them, your
was
good
on the
friend,
bench.
getting
I was on the
beaten.
bench.
You were on the bench
I
for
was on
that,
the
so
bench for that
you
game.
weren't good enough to be in a team where the goalkeeper conceded a goal to the other team's goalkeeper, and you're giving me chat or bad jokes about George Ford being reversed.
Shots fired.
Right, look, lads, let's just park.
Hang your head, Richard.
Let's just park this, all right, boys?
Let's
Come
just
on.
park it. Let's just park it, yeah.
All right, let's kick this into overdrive. And talk a little... that was pretty poor. Right, so George Ford's been dropped, and the point is that this is history repeating itself. If you cast your mind back 4 years, England were in a not totally dissimilar situation at the World Cup in that we'd reached crunch time. We reached it a little bit earlier at the last World Cup. Of course, it was at home, and we had pool games against both Wales and Australia. George Ford had been the number 10 for most of the year building up to those games. George Ford was dropped on the eve of those games to allow Owen Farrell to play at number 10 rather than at number 12. It didn't go well 4 years ago. We lost both games to Wales and Australia. We went out of the World Cup in the pool stage, but this time it feels a little bit different. While I'm personally disappointed to see George Ford drop because I think he's been playing fantastically. I think that we look a better attacking team with George Ford in it. I can understand why Eddie Jones has done it.
Yeah. Is the issue Ford's focus?
You've literally just been... I've seen you looking up models of Ford. I mean, it might have been mildly amusing if you hadn't done that. And I know that the listeners didn't know that, and I didn't need to tell them, but they deserve to know.
They deserve to know the secrets. Yeah,
Well,
I've got a couple
that,
more.
if we beat Australia, there'll be a fiesta.
Nice.
Mrs. the Cougar. Hey. Sorry. Sorry, I just had a very stern shot across the bows there from producer Guy. Let's talk about the rugby in a very serious way.
I'm just annoyed that I can't think of any more models.
I've got them all in front of me. If you want to do there's something we could do with Galaxy, maybe, I don't know. Anyway,
let's do the rugby.
Let's do the rugby.
Let's do the rugby. Well, George Ford has been dropped, as I've said several times. Now, Billy Vunipola fit to start, which is a boost, although probably important to stress that he hasn't been quite at his electric best. Although I was interested listening to Will Fraser, the former Saracens flanker, former teammate of Billy's on Love Sport Drive yesterday. He said that if you offered any of the 8 quarter-finalists Billy Vunipola, in the current form he's been in, or any form at all, they would take him, assuming he's fit to play, of course. They wouldn't take an injured Billy Vunipola, but they'd take a fit Billy Vunipola, which I thought was quite a telling statement and a reminder of the kind of aura that he has. Mark Wilson, who would have played instead, is a good player, but he doesn't have that same aura, I think, that Billy brings. So that's a real boost. His brother Mako fit to start as well in the front row.
Obviously, England are favourites for this.
Yes.
Like, if it were, I know, for instance, NFL, it'll always be a case of they're favourites by X amount of points. What would be the gap as it stands? Because it's not that big, surely.
It's not that big, and the point is, similar to football, knockout games are tight affairs normally. They're not decided, generally speaking, by 20, 30 points. It's always difficult to predict because rugby depends so much on the conditions. If it's pouring with rain, then obviously it's going to be a lower scoring game. It's going to be difficult to play free-flowing rugby, score a lot of tries. The stadium in Oita, where this quarterfinal and the Wales versus France game are going to take place, has a roof though, so if the conditions are really poor, they probably would close the roof, build the atmosphere as well. I think England's have the potential to score quite a lot of points. I think we could win by as much as sort of 15 points or so. But ultimately, any win's a win. We haven't had a Rugby World Cup knockout win for 12 years.
Wow.
But then again, the football team hadn't had a World Cup knockout win for 12 years before last year, and, well, we had 2. So, yeah, if we could have 2 this time, we'll be in the final.
I want to talk a little bit just later on about the battle of the two coaches.
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
great war of words.
I mean, it is. So just fill our listeners in just briefly about it, because it does look like the Australian coach is the most angry man.
He is so angry. Michael Checker, yeah, he and Eddie Jones were old teammates, in fact, in club rugby back in Randwick, a suburb of Sydney. And I think they were friends, but they're not anymore, because Eddie Jones has beaten him 6 times in a row as England coach against Checker as Australia coach. Obviously, we're all hoping that's going to be 7 out of 7, a magnificent 7 for Eddie Jones in England on Saturday. But Michael Checker seems to have been wound up, and we'll talk about this a bit more because this is a great little subplot to it. The number of Aussies in the England camp just grows and grows, and it seems that playing Australia just means that Eddie Jones brings in more. So Eddie's an Aussie himself, obviously. We've got Scott Wisemantle, the attack coach, Aussie, and he's brought in for good measure a bloke called Ricky Stewart, who used to play rugby league for Australia. Michael Checker's been like, I don't understand what's going on. They wouldn't be very happy if we brought in Gareth Southgate. It's like, it's a bit different if he's the actual England football coach, mate. We're just talking about former Australian rugby players. Yeah. It doesn't really have much bearing on it. If you brought in Eddie Jones to the Australia camp, yeah, that wouldn't be great, but that's not really the equivalent.
I'd be over the moon if you brought in Roy Hodgson. Love
Can
it.
you imagine?
Just go home now.
Bring Roy Hodgson, Steve McLaren and Sam Allardyce for a special team.
Wow, the way England are just relentlessly knocking it long out there is just bizarre.
Brilliant to watch, yeah. Wonder if there's been some sort of sabotage. We'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Great stuff. Producer Guy, who will be in and out all morning. I am, of course, here with Patrick Christys. Lots to come. Do stay tuned. 3 minutes to 7.
Love sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Lots for breakfast, lots for radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. So obviously talking about George Ford being dropped there for the game this weekend. So obviously he's going to be disappointed. But if we do win, then regardless, you know when it'll be a good day? Monday.
Oh, mate, you need to just go home. Just go home and get your head down.
Was that?
No, that's one of the worst ones you've ever done, and that's part of the catalogue of terror.
Do you know how much plan I put into that?
I imagine about 4 seconds.
No, worryingly, so much longer. Anyway, lots to come. We've got some special guests today. Carl Fletcher, new manager of Leyton Orient, Dimitar Mitov, Bulgarian goalkeeper. Stay with us.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Breaking news, and the DUP has said it cannot support the new Brexit deal that's been negotiated by Boris Johnson. The Prime Minister's heading to Brussels later for a crucial EU summit. He needs the remaining 27 member states to support his agreement to avoid delaying the UK's withdrawal. Labour MP Stephen Kinnock says his party may also struggle to back the Prime Minister's deal.
If it's correct that the government's strategy is all about divergence and the political declaration on the future relationship is not going to have those guarantees and safeguards that we're looking for, then I think it becomes more difficult for Labour MPs to support it.
Veteran Labour MP Dame Louise Ellman has said Jeremy Corbyn is not fit to serve as our Prime Minister as she quit the party after 55 years. She claims that under his leadership, anti-Semitism has become mainstream. It's understood around 12,000 Asda workers are currently facing the sack for refusing to sign controversial new contracts. Yesterday, hundreds marched through Leeds to hand in a petition at the supermarket's headquarters. Giving statins to healthy people as a preventative measure could be doing more harm than good. Experts writing in the British Medical Journal say the pills, which lower harmful cholesterol, only offer a tiny benefit for low-risk patients but also carry side effects. Sports. England's head coach Eddie Jones has dropped fly half George Ford for Saturday's Rugby World Cup quarter-final in Japan. He'll be replaced at 10 by Owen Farrell. Jones says it was a tough decision to make.
Look, he's disappointed, as we've got a number of other players in our squad of 31 who are disappointed, but George understands the role he has to play. Obviously, he would have liked to have started, but he's coping with it well.
And Facebook has dropped out of the top 10 list of the world's most valuable brands, moving from 9th to 14th. The first 4 spots are taken by Apple, Google, Amazon and Microsoft, 4 British companies, including Land Rover and Mini. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
This is Love Sport.
Quality is something you should never compromise. A beautiful music score, printed centuries ago, works just as perfectly today. Like the quality that flows from your HP printer, working in perfect harmony with the right ink. You don't want to spoil that with any impurities. Right now at Currys PC World, you can save 15% on the genuine article when you buy 2 of the same selected HP inks together. Don't compromise on quality. Use original HP ink at Currys PC World.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick. Oh, I've got a real crick in my neck then. Oh, it hurt. I'm good. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'll get through it. Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Let's touch on some of those headlines this morning. George Ford has been dropped by Eddie Jones for England's World Cup game against Australia. Premier League games are to be played at 8 p.m. on Boxing Day. Pogba and David De Gea are out of the Liverpool game on Sunday. UK Athletics to hold independent inquiry into how and why Mo Farah was back to stay with Salazar, and a tragic story. Boxer Patrick Day has died aged 27 days after suffering a brain injury in defeat to Charles Caldwell. I am here, of course, with Mr. Patrick Christys, here with you all the way until 10.
Yes, hello, Rich. So United look like they're going to be spending big, or at least trying to spend big, don't
yes.
they? So Manchester United want 6 signings in the next 2 transfer windows. Now, bear in mind they, of course, play Liverpool at the weekend, and both David De Gea and Paul Pogba, arguably the only 2 players who might find their way into that Liverpool team, although probably not at the minute, they're out. They're out injured. So United are going to be fielding a remarkably kind of uninspiring lineup, aren't they, against the best team in the league? And so, yeah, Solskjaer's looking to spend big.
Yeah, well, look, we're going to hear from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. As always, if you guys have got your thoughts on this, by all means, let us know. 0208 70 20 558. I see we've got several people on YouTube once again. They're getting in touch. Clive, our regular, giving you a little bit of praise. And also you can get in touch on the socials at Love Sport Radio, because we're going to be talking a lot about United, because they do have an injury crisis and they are in a lot of trouble at the moment. They're only, a few points off the drop.
Yeah, they are, which is a bizarre thing to say. But just some of the players that it looks like they're trying to line up, we all know that James Maddison's been a relatively long-term target for them. Moussa Dembele at Lyon, Mario Mandzukic at Juventus, and Saul Niguez at Atletico Madrid are some of the players' names that are being bandied about and thrown into this mix.
Yeah, we're going to touch on both of the strikers they're looking at and the age difference between the two strikers. You do wonder what the strategy is. But let's hear first and foremost from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on Paul Pogba's fitness.
Played a couple of games, maybe played through the pain barrier, and we had a scan after the Arsenal game and he needed a few weeks rest in a boot, so hopefully he won't be too long, but he won't make this game, no.
In a boot?
In a boot?
And they're going to be in the cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's
your Norwegian out of interest?
No. Yeah. One of my favourite pastimes to mock people with foreign accents, but I can't speak anything other than poor English.
Yeah. I like doing it when you're abroad as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Especially
really
and then
insulting.
Get ready, God, they don't know a word of English here in Mongolia. I can't believe it's rude. It's just rude.
Just plain rude.
Ah.
United, of course,
Wasn't in the brochure.
only 2 points off the drop as it stands. There is that potential, over the next few games, given that United have got some tough games ahead, that they could find themselves in the relegation zone.
This is actually a thing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I remember just looking at the table before and being like, no.
Just see them gradually sliding.
Yeah, it does look as though it could happen. Look, I mean, they're going to get beat against Liverpool, probably. I'd be amazed if they don't get stuffed by Liverpool, but that's not really where... This is a classic line, isn't it? Of that's not where, if you're battling for to stay up, these aren't the games that you factor into the season.
It's a classic line of the bottom six.
Yeah.
It's a classic line of the bottom six. Look, part of the issue is...
Which we've already lost to, by the way. Sorry, Newcastle.
Of course. Look, part of the issue is, and of course, they're talking about potentially bringing players in January, which they need to do. But the players they're being linked to, and you don't know how much truth there is, but there doesn't seem to be a specific type. It seems like you've got players ranging from 21 to 30 odd.
Yeah.
They're like Mandzukic, who is, 32 now, I think.
Yeah.
So you then wonder, is there actually a strategy in place, or are they going to keep going down the same roads they've been down before? The summer made me think it's going to be slightly different, because I think with Dan James, with Wan-Bissaka, with Harry Maguire, they've got 3 different type of players. Yes, Harry Maguire isn't a kid, but at the same time, he's got a lot of years left in him, and he's an ideal character for what they're trying to build. But I just hope they don't go down the same paths again, where they'll go and get a 35-year-old in to be another stopgap. That's not what they need.
No, it's not at all. And it seems strange, like you said, this focus on youth, this talk of a long-term plan and this project that they're building there at Manchester United. And then it looks as though, given some of the names that they're being linked with there, that they just want to go back to being this Frankenstein football club of just piecing together with various supposed superstars. Alexis Sanchez, he's good, so we'll just buy him. What are we going to do with him? I don't know, we'll just shove him on the pitch. This kind of thing. And it's been an absolute disaster before. And that's the polar opposite of what Sir Alex Ferguson had. I saw him win leagues, I'm sure we all saw him win leagues, with teams that you thought, well, how the heck have they done that? I was watching some highlights the other night, and Luke Chadwick's name popped up, for goodness sake. Pretty sure United won the league that season that Luke Chadwick played a few games in, and you think, that was because they were a team.
Yeah.
That wasn't because he just went out and bought a 32-year-old striker out of from somewhere far-flung corner of the world and just lumped him into the team. So,
well, this is it. If you have a defined style of play, then it's that much easier for players to sub in, sub out, because you come in and you're doing your job, and it is a job. You're doing your job within that team environment, and that's the question: are they doing enough away from the field tactically so that they actually know what their role is when the substitutes are coming on? Do they fit straight into a team? Because if it's a player like you mentioned, Luke Chadwick, obviously for a period of time he was very good. Tom Cleverley was another one as well who won a title, and certainly one that I played with when I was at Watford when I was younger, very good. But these players, I know they were drilled, so they might not have been the star player in the team, but they knew they would come in and wouldn't be the weak link. I think that's key as well. So when you've got a team of individuals, and we're going to touch as well on the injury crisis in more detail, because there are so many players that are out and potentially out. Also want to touch on the fact that Solskjaer had quite a brutal pre-season, from what we understand, which he was quite proud of at the time. Whether that then has an impact?
Yeah, so Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was really bemoaning the fact that last season, what he inherited, he thought was the most unfit group of players that he'd seen. He's clearly never played for my five-a-side team. But he decided he wanted to drill them, a little bit like it was boot camp, right? But then now everyone's crocked, aren't they? And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's just sat there, just deciding which 16-year-old he wants to play at centre-back.
Well, this is it. They have 11 injuries at the moment. Only one team in the Premier League have more, which is Norwich. They have 13. The likes of Martial, Wan-Bissaka not certain to be fit after injury and illness. Shaw's out as well. We touched on Pogba, touched on De Gea. When you look at the likely team, Romero, Dalot, Maguire, Lindelof, Young, Matic, McTominay, Pereira, Mata, James, Rashford. Do you know what? Look, there's talented players in there, but to see that as a Manchester United team, and this is, of course, the perception that we've got of these players in this current moment, I get that, but to actually look at the Man United team right now to be that, it is night and day. And as much as Danny Mills got a little bit of stick for saying that all 11 players that he would have had in the combined team would have been Liverpool players, I think there's something to it right now.
Well,
do any of those players I've named just there get in the Liverpool team?
No, absolutely not. I just want to run something by you, though, because apparently one of the best things to do in a situation like this, and you may well be able to educate me on this, Rich, is...
Well, I did have a lot of success against the big team.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
You did. And you contributed towards Ronaldo getting towards his 700th goal, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
How many was it?
Just the 2.
Scored 2 against you?
Yeah.
Still, though, hey. So what they're saying is that maybe, just maybe, the United players should go on a really boozy night out. So Brian Robson did this when he was at United, and apparently things were particularly bad. And he said to them, right, leave your cars at the training ground, lads. We're going into town. This'll take as long as it takes. So then they all went out, and, the rest is history.
You sure it's because of that, or was it just a Tuesday?
Wait, Brian Robson? No, it was Tuesday.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, no, that's him. I tell you what, the Sun are going to have to print a massive apology here. They're going to have to print a big apology to anyone that thought that Brian Robson was doing that for the sake of the team. Oh, dear me.
There's something...
Hate to say it.
There is something to that. And you'll see, even nowadays, I would say this, even nowadays where things have changed, more professional than ever, I'd certainly say that. However, there is something about bringing a team together, like when you want to break down a few barriers. Now, I know a lot of these players won't drink, so maybe it's not quite the same as it was beforehand, but actually that was something that most teams would do, is like go and spend a day together, go and get drunk together, because actually it breaks down certain barriers within that team.
So is this something that you might advise this Manchester United team? Go out, just I don't know, is there anywhere, I don't know, maybe like a pub in Derby?
I mean, there'll be a weather... Okay, I see where you're going now. I mean, look, I wouldn't recommend necessarily going to a Wetherspoons. That might not be the best idea.
Why not? Sticky carpets.
Yeah, and it's, and the price of drinks has just gone through the roof recently.
Right.
Yeah. No, look, I wouldn't recommend a Wetherspoons, but just go out together, just have a social evening. They did, in fairness, go for dinner, didn't they? They're trying to do that as a monthly
Pogba
thing.
didn't turn up, Maguire didn't turn up, a few other people didn't turn up. So this is what they were saying. Brian Robson said, no exceptions, no shows, you're all coming out. Lads. I just wonder whether or not this is what it needs.
So they're saying that potentially 6 signings in the next 2 windows. First question is, will that work? Is that the solution to all of this, by just bringing in 6 more players?
Well, they need a lot more players because, look at the absolute state of that squad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they do definitely need more. I mean, it is a question of exactly what you're going to do with recruitment. The only benefit I could see of getting in somebody like a Mandzukic, who is 32 years old, is if he brings with him a little bit more experience, and he's somebody who could be a figure, a little bit like but definitely not, like your Zlatan Ibrahimovic figure, who the youngsters look up to a bit. Because at the moment, when they look around, like with the best will in the world, if Marcus Rashford's one of your senior players, you're like, it's not very inspiring, is it?
Well, reportedly 2 of the strikers they're looking at, you mentioned Mandzukic there, 33, Moussa Dembele at Lyon, 23, which does go back to my point, is what is the strategy? If you've got 2 players that are completely different in terms of age, in terms of what they bring.
But you didn't. I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer right now is just in charge of a crash, isn't he? He just turns up every day, and you just see the players there just trying to put the right shapes, into the right shape hole. They've all got paint all over their faces, and occasionally Jesse Lingard will walk up with like a bad hand painting and just ask Ollie if he wants to stick it on the fridge.
Yeah, that's not just Man United. That's most football changing rooms.
Yeah, it's true.
You go in the morning, you walk into the change room, you got one lad with his colouring in book.
I've got this beautiful image of like Solskjaer turning up like a Norwegian PE teacher with just white shorts pulled up really high. Yeah, like a baggy shirt, just a whistle, like a headband. White socks pulled up really high as well.
Yeah.
White plimp soles, just like, do it right, boys. Knees up. Knees up.
Who knows? Maybe that's exactly what's going on. The last January signing they made was Alexis Sanchez, who, of course, they're now funding a couple of $100,000 worth a week at Inter
They're paying
Milan.
him more to be at Inter Milan to get out of that club than Liverpool pay Mo Salah.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is crazy. But that's it. A lot of clubs don't tend to buy players in January. This is another thing in that it's kind of more of a panic window, and you tend to overpay. In fact, there you go, Alexis Sanchez being the perfect example. You tend to overpay in January.
Yeah, the only thing that Manchester United fans may or may not be happy about, actually, now I've said it, is that the Glazers appear to be testing the market. So Kevin Glazer's sudden move on the New York Stock Exchange, this was that he decided he wanted to sell his 13% stake in Manchester United. It's got tongues wagging anyway in financial circles that basically they could be on their way out. They do wonder whether or not the Glazer family have had enough now at Manchester United, whether they want to cash in while it's still got value, I suppose. But I think the big loser in that capacity would be Ed Woodward, because I would say if they did manage to sell up and whoever buys it, whatever, I'm not sure they'd keep Ed in charge. They've given Ed Woodward the best part of £1 billion, pretty much, to spend on players. Now his team are sitting essentially in 2 points above the relegation zone, with arguably the worst Manchester United team that certainly I've ever seen in my lifetime. A very untried and untested manager. In fact, when he has been tried and tested, he's failed normally. It's not really great, is it?
It's not. Well, look, we're going to be talking current affairs next. We've got some big breaking Brexit news. Patrick will be talking about celebrities who have admitted they're hypocrites for backing Extinction Rebellion, and we'll be talking about some sporting beef shortly as well. Ronnie O'Sullivan versus Barry Hearn, Brooks Koepka versus Rory McIlroy.
If it ain't broke, break it. This is Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site spokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Patrick's going to touch on some of the front pages shortly. Just an interesting fact for you, Patrick, something that I'm aware of is that obviously Australia taking on England.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this, but Australia actually have the edge in terms of head-to-heads as it currently stands, 25-24. So England win. It'll obviously make it 25-4. Interestingly, of course, before our man took over, it was, of course, 25-18.
Right.
So Eddie Jones, all of a sudden, he could really level things up.
He could do, couldn't he? And he'd love it as well, because him and the Aussie coach, what I really like about the subplot to what's going on is that they hate each other, but they don't really hate each other. I think what Eddie Jones does is really just wind up Michael Checker, and Checker just seems to be the kind of guy that will just get angry about absolutely anything. Just no banter whatsoever.
He's the kid in school.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like the one when if you were playing football against him, right, and you knew he was really good, and then you were like, "Oh, you're rubbish, mate." And he's like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I play for Watford."
No, I'm not. I scored this many goals last season.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
I'm not. I saved this many.
Yeah, well, actually, Manchester United looked at me once, so that's him.
It's kind of my comeback to you. Every time you mock me, I just mention the Ibiza Cup.
Oh, yeah.
You
Well,
know,
no.
who else has won that?
Puts me right in my place.
There you go.
Well, 10 other blokes, obviously, but, apart from that.
Let's talk some front pages, shall we?
Yes, okay. So, Brexiteers, it's bad news again this morning. Remainers... Well, actually, you know what? It might turn out to be bad news for everyone, actually, because the DUP has rejected a deal as things stand. Now, yesterday, all of the noises coming out of Brussels were Boris Johnson might actually be close to getting a deal with them. Looked as though he's making some concessions, and what they were saying was that essentially he was willing, it appeared anyway, to allow Northern Ireland to have to be more closely aligned to the European Union than the rest of the United Kingdom, something that before was simply not really seen as feasible. But unfortunately, right at the last minute, the DUP said that as things stand, they couldn't support it. What they're saying is that if the DUP, if Northern Ireland, I should say, sorry, has to remain contingent on EU environmental policy, customs policy, all of this jazz, then actually they're not going to have it. And that you'd have thought that Boris might have raised that with them before, because getting right to the point of signing something, and they say no. So again, we've got another last ditch attempt today.
Is that like a negotiation way of going about things? Where you're so close.
Well, Boris Johnson's got to negotiate with literally everyone. You see, this is the thing. He's negotiating with the EU. He's negotiating with the Northern Irish parties, and yeah, but it is getting critical now, because what the reality is that on the 19th of October, clearly Saturday. So realistically, the 18th of October, because they all swan off. Unless a deal can be agreed, or at least put on the table, Boris Johnson will have to go and ask the European Union for an extension legally. Yeah. Now, there are some issues here. We keep hearing adverts on this station for "Get ready for Brexit" on the 31st of October. Boris Johnson said he'd rather be dead in a ditch than go and ask for an extension. He's also said as well that it was do or die, we're leaving on the 3rd. Well, if that doesn't happen, that's the kind of thing that people resign over.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty mega, right? It won't, by the way. I'm sure it won't. But yeah, that is so that's an issue basically. So that's where we are. The only saving grace that we could have here, and a lot of people are saying, well, how could he? What's he got up his sleeve? How could he manage to maybe make sure that Brexit does happen on the 31st of October, while still asking for some kind of extension to it? Well, in order for us to get an extension, all of the EU member states have to vote on it, and each of those possesses a veto. So some of the rumours are that countries like Hungary, for example, might be willing to veto any kind of extension, which means that we do just crash out of the European Union on the 31st of October.
Have they got the appetite for a deal?
Oh, stop.
I mean, look, by the way, it was actually producer Guy that time. He's whispering in my ear. He said, "What about Thursday?"
Well, I'm glad you two are having fun.
Well, we are. I'm listening.
Glad you two are
I'm listening.
fun.
I really enjoy all this. So go on, tell me
Climate
some more.
change ego warriors.
Yeah.
Climate protest lovies won't end polluting lifestyle. So more than 100 Extinction Rebellion backing stars have signed an open letter admitting they are climate change hypocrites.
Which is weird. I've read this. I don't get this. So there's obviously some big names there.
So these include your usual suspects: Benedict Cumberbatch, Mel B. Now, I'm not being funny, but I don't think Mel B knows which way's up, let alone anything about the ozone layer. You've got Daisy Lowe, Steve Coogan as well. Now, they confess that their high carbon lifestyles damage the planet, but they will carry on. So I'm sorry, but this is just nuts, isn't it? So again, what you are saying, it's like when Elton John offset Prince Harry's carbon footprint, which, by the way, isn't a thing, really.
Right.
It's not a thing. The fact is that you can pay to do that if you're wadded, right? But what they are really saying, this bunch of lefty lovies who look in the mirror and what they see shining back at them is a frothing hypocrite. What they are saying is, if you are a normal person, please do all the hard yards. Please recycle responsibly. Please, hire a small raft to get you across the Atlantic to America, because we don't want any carbon in the atmosphere. But oh yeah, we're still going to emit a lot of hot air ourselves and get in private jets. Like, shut up and go away.
So they have effectively, that's what they've said. They're like, we know that we're not living as best we possibly could.
Yeah.
but we want the world to be. That's what they've signed.
Yep, that's exactly that.
Very strange.
It is.
Very
It
strange.
is absolutely bonkers. So I'm just got it here. Dear journalists who have called us hypocrites, you're right. We live high carbon lives, and the industries that we are part of have huge carbon footprints. Like you and everyone else, we're stuck in this fossil fuel economy, and without systemic change, our lifestyles will keep on causing climate and ecological harm. The stories that you write calling us climate hypocrites will not silence us. Well, maybe it should, because this is the thing, if it just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever that they will be able to go and do this kind of thing.
Yeah, it is interesting. People got so many different beliefs on this. We're going to move on, though. We're going to go back to a bit of sport because producer Guy has come into the room. He's got some information to give us.
Yeah, some stories from the back pages that I like today, guys. A bit of beef going on as well, of course. They've decided to kindly wait until the end of the international break to have all this beef, these people from other sports, but it is good nonetheless for us to get our teeth into. Oh, God, sounds like a bad beef pun, but I didn't even mean it.
It's very good.
You guys have got me in the mood for a pun on this fine Thursday morning. I want to talk first about Barry Hearn and Ronnie O'Sullivan, or as the Sun have branded him this morning, Ronnie O'Dullivan. That's because Barry Hearn, the, of course, chairman of World Snooker, has called him deadly dull and boring in an interview. And this is because of this ongoing saga. And we've been covering this quite a lot on Love Sport Drive. I know you guys have been talking about it as well. Ronnie O'Sullivan's hatred of Crawley and in particular the K2 Leisure Centre, the place he described as a hellhole last year. He said it smelt of urine because he had to do one of his TV interviews right next to like a toilet in the leisure centre. None of the other players, by the way, seem to have an issue with it. We spoke to Martin Gould yesterday, who is a professional snooker player, was knocked out of the English Open earlier this week. He'd have every reason to be grinding his axe, but nope, he didn't. He said it's absolutely fine. It's not really different to most of the other venues we play at. In fact, if anything, it's better. I prefer it. It's a very decent venue, but Ronnie hates it. And, what Ronnie says gets in the papers a little bit more than most of the other snooker players. But Barry Hearn's not that happy.
What do you think, Patrick? Do you think he's losing his edge?
I reckon he said a couple of things yesterday that did annoy me, actually, where he starts going on about how he doesn't want to basically play against anyone who's worse than him at snooker, which is, okay, we just play against the same 4 people maybe over and over again, pretty much. Like
a fundamental misunderstanding of how sport and tournament play works.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to play him or him. He's ranked too low. He's ranked a bit high. I've got a really good record against him. I'd like to play him. Doesn't work. As Barry Hearn himself said, now he wants to pick who he plays. Nonsense. I quite agree with Barry on this one, I have to say. And Ronnie has described, he's hit back at this. He says Barry Hearn wouldn't get into the Conference League of promoters in the world. It's petty, isn't it?
That is really petty.
I think. Do you not think that Ronnie O'Sullivan is a bit miffed that he's seen other sports maybe move with the times? In his lifetime, he's seen what the Premier League has become. For example, he's seen what's happened with cricket, and that actually he's just annoyed that snooker is just the same old playing at the same old venues. The crowds are dwindling, the viewers are dwindling, and then maybe that's what he's annoyed at.
I think it is. I think if anything, it's shrunk. I think Ronnie O'Sullivan as well, the personality type that he's got, he says a lot. He doesn't seem to care what he says. It's almost like he speaks without thinking. He's got no filter. It does feel like that when he's giving the interviews.
And it does vary literally every single time he speaks.
Himself.
Martin Gould yesterday said it. He said Ronnie changes mind more often than the rest of us change socks.
Yeah.
And it's quite true. Earlier this week, I'm going to play 80% of my events in China. He spent most of the last few years mouthing off about how much he hates having to play in China.
And this is the point, is that I think it's just whatever comes to him in that moment. It's very rare. And I love watching Ronnie O'Sullivan play. And actually, not that I watch a lot of snooker these days, to be honest, probably backs up the point we're making. But actually, if I am going to watch it, I'd want to watch Ronnie O'Sullivan because the way in which he plays, he's got flair and plays with his left hand from time to time. He's enjoyable to watch, and the way in which he builds breaks. And I used to love snooker when I was a kid, and he was a big reason as to why. But I think that it's very rare that you'll see like a comment or a quote from Ronnie O'Sullivan that blows your mind.
Yeah, you know what it is? I reckon he's sober.
I'm bored.
Yeah.
Sober and bored.
I'm telling you, once these people who used to have quite high-octane lifestyles decide that they want to drink a kale smoothie for breakfast, you get this kind of nonsense.
And he has got into... he's got, obsessive about his diet.
Yeah, of course he has. There you go.
What you're referring to.
Didn't even know that. I just see it. You can smell it a mile off.
He's, I think, even having a cookbook out. But the thing is, he'll say anything to promote something as well. He sort of rails against, if you like, a lot of the... capitalism and the way society works and everything. But then if he's got a TV series coming out or a book coming out or whatever it might be, he pops up with something controversial. Look, I love Ronnie O'Sullivan. I love watching him play snooker. I think what he's able to make that sport into with the way he plays it is quite remarkable. There's probably never been anyone who's able to do it in the way he does it. But he makes a right fool of himself off the table sometimes.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to the front page of the paper to an extent, where we're talking about some of these stars.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, no, I think Ronnie is a sensation, clearly, and he's a wonderful sports star, but it didn't sit well with me. I did like what you said about Crawley, by the way, because I've said some pretty similar things about Burnley in my time, so I can't really dig him out for that.
What would you say about Crawley?
Well, what would I say about Crawley?
What would you say about Crawley?
Oh, so what Ronnie O'Sullivan said, just to fill our listeners, was that the best thing about Crawley was the M23 out of that.
Yes, he did.
I'd say Crawley.
And I've used the M23 a lot, by the way. Not even a good motorway.
I'd say yeah, not even a good motorway.
It's not in my top 10.
No,
Not
I'd say Crawley probably makes Slough look like Venice.
There you go.
I can't put it any better than that. We got Rory McIlroy and Brooks Koepka in a bit of a ding-dong as well. Do you want to hear about that now or do you want to hear about that later?
I'll tell you what, let's tease our listeners, shall we? Let's leave that
Stay
for
on
now.
the line for that, guys.
Stay on the line. We'll be talking about that shortly.
You look silly, listeners. Oh, a different kind of teasing.
Different kind of
Sorry.
teasing. Yeah. I see. It's so when you said you were teasing your better half.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
I got completely the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah, you really did.
God, you were just nasty
Got
to
a
her.
massive egg on your face now, haven't you?
7:30.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee. Patrick Christys here with you until 10. We're going to be speaking to David Chidgey, chair of the Chelsea Supporters Trust, very shortly. Just to recap on your headlines this morning, plenty going on in the world of sport as ever. George Ford has been dropped by Eddie Jones for England's World Cup quarter-final versus Australia. Premier League game to be played at 8 p.m. on Boxing Day. Pogba and De Gea both out of the Liverpool game on Sunday. United with a bit of an injury crisis. UK Athletics to hold an independent inquiry into how and why Mo Farah was back to stay with Salazar. And a tragic story. Boxer Patrick Day has died at age 27 after suffering brain injuries in defeat to Charles Cornwell. Of course, I'm joined here by Mr. Patrick Christys.
Yes, okay. And I know we're going to talk a little bit later on as well, actually, about Prince Harry. So Prince Harry's been crying on stage, Rich. Well, there's a psychologist who's had a look into this. And he reckons that Harry is not necessarily okay, and that he's desperately trying to make everything all about him. So we're going to be stuck into that.
That's interesting. Okay, can we touch on it now?
Yeah.
I mean, look, we're talking about teasing. We can't just tease everything.
Okay. So, what they've said is that Prince Harry yesterday, or 2 days ago, I should say, was at the Well Child Awards, which is obviously a charity event that celebrates children overcoming illness and adversity and disability and things like that. So, very worthy cause, unequivocally worthy cause. Anyway, Prince Harry attends it pretty much every year. He was there last year with Meghan. Anyway, he broke down on stage. He started crying on stage as he spoke about essentially just his own experiences of fatherhood. Now, in the Daily Mail today, there's quite an interesting piece actually by Dr. Max Pemberton, who supported Prince Harry in his mental awareness campaign. Or remember, Prince Harry did that a good couple of years ago now. And what he said is that Harry tried to colonise the event, which actually, as a member of the British royal family, we're pretty ruddy good at. Thank you very much. But tried to colonise the event and make it all about him. He said this was actually an event for sick kids, basically. And Prince Harry's got on stage, and his entire focus of his speech was on him and on him and Meghan and their feelings and how they felt to be parents. And he said that also that the tears, he's not convinced that they were real. For a start, which this is a guy who's kind of paid to kind of make these decisions, and yeah, he said that actually we should be quite concerned about this. He said he doesn't recognise the Prince Harry here that he knew when he was launching his mental health awareness campaign. That he thought his tears might be a little bit fake. He also thought he couldn't believe that it was making it all about him, and it points to a worrying state of mind.
Crocodile tears.
Crocodile tears. Have you ever cried for a fact?
I haven't got the ability, I don't think.
Have you ever pretended to cry for a fact?
I've pretended, but I can't. I don't know how to do that. Like that's quite a skill to make yourself cry. Can you do
some
it?
people can do it. I at times can. I just think about if I had to live with you, and then the tears just cut. What's happening now? What's happening now?
I'll tell you what. Let's take a 30-second interval, and we can discuss this.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. What do you want me to do to your back?
Back's gone into spasm.
No, I know it's gone into spasm. Not a lot I can do. I'm trying to do a radio show here, Patrick. No, look, go and see Producer Guy. He's a man of many talents. You want to do that one where you go back to back, link arms, and then Guy leans forward, and that'll crack his back. Anyway, right, I'll let them crack on. Delighted to say, and thankfully, Mr. David Chidgey, chair of the Chelsea Supporters Trust, is on the line. Morning, Chidge.
Morning, Richard. No longer chair, but still on board of the Chelsea Supporters Trust.
Apologies. I'm kind of glad
That's
that you've
all right,
come
you
and...
weren't to know.
No, I'm kind of glad you've come and helped me out here because Patrick has left the studio. He's got a bit of a back issue right now, so I'm currently watching Guy massage Patrick. It's all a bit weird, actually. I'm a little bit concerned.
What a horrible thought.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, a few things I want to talk to you about today.
Back in the game.
Oh, he's back. He's back. Here we go. Mr. Chidgey is on the line.
Oh, hello, Chidge.
Morning, Patrick.
How are you?
I'm all right. Hope your back's not too bad.
Thank you very much.
Right, I want to talk to you about these Boxing Day or fixtures. Of course, announcement yesterday that there's going to be an 8 p.m. Boxing Day fixture. First and foremost, your thoughts on that?
Well, it just defies belief. I mean, we go through this every year, particularly around Christmas with the Premier League and the TV companies. I mean, I think last year we managed to stave off a really late kick-off on Christmas Eve. At the last, but the broadcasters just don't really give a damn about supporters who have to travel at a very difficult time of the year. I mean, Boxing Day, perennially, you've got issues with getting to the games because of the travel, the trains aren't running, and all this kind of stuff. But they don't really care. But an 8 o'clock fixture on a Boxing Day, I think it's Liverpool. They've got to go to Leicester is appalling. It's just appalling. They give no thought to the fans who have to, put a hand in their pocket at a difficult time of the year, as I said, but they want to be with their families. It just beggars belief.
Is it? So I suppose I was giving the counter argument, which is your TV viewer and the millions that will be watching on TV that will now have games throughout the day on Boxing Day. Effectively, they're catering for them, right?
Well, I think this is what's happening increasingly. The TV product is what finances the game. I completely understand that. But the game is popular because of the atmosphere, particularly in the Premier League, at the grounds. And if you're just banging the fans that go home and away every week on the head, sooner or later, they're going to say enough is enough. And then what will happen to the Premier League's wonderful product? So they really are cutting their nose off to spite their face, I think.
Yeah, it does feel like short-term gain, long-term pain potentially. Big game for Chelsea at the weekend. Certainly a very winnable game, you would think, although Newcastle coming off the back of a good victory against Manchester United. How are Chelsea looking going into that game? I know they've had a lot of players on internationals, but are they looking pretty strong going into that?
Well, they are. I mean, we've won 4 on the spin now. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the break has affected that. I mean, particularly with injuries. We managed to pick up a few in the break. Kovacic, I think, has got an issue. Kante's got an issue. Christensen's got an issue. So, I mean, if we can't play Kante on Saturday, that's obviously a huge loss. But yeah, I mean, a very winnable game against Newcastle. Although they have a habit of, well, this season they've surprised a few, haven't they? But we've got a pretty good record against Newcastle at home, so I go in with optimism.
Excellent. I want to ask you about Hudson-Odoi. Of course, a successful week with the under-21s, and good to see that he's fully fit again now. Will it be a case that he will be back in the Chelsea team, be a mainstay in the Chelsea team, or has he got a bit of work to do to get his full fitness back, do you think?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Frank does after his amazing performance for the under-21. He scored 2 absolutely brilliant goals, didn't he? But thus far, Frank's been easing him in gently. So he's kind of either... Well, I mean, I think he started him against Southampton and he did pretty well, and he got about 60 minutes the match before he brought him on. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts him on Saturday. But he's such a talent, Richard. I think most supporters will be clamouring to see him play on the right. And perhaps Willian on the left. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing him start more and more and more because I think he is a rare talent. It'd be fantastic to see him play.
Yeah, and just a general one on Chelsea, because 14 points after 8 games. They've had, certainly after the first game of the season, I'm sure every Chelsea fan would have taken this position. There's a lot of positivity surrounding the club, you feel. What have the fans made of Frank Lampard's start?
Well, I think universally, everybody's absolutely loving it. I mean, he gets... a complete pass anyway, I think, because of the transfer ban, because we lost Eden Hazard, and of course because he's the club's, arguably the club's greatest ever player, and a very, very loved player at that. But I think the start's been interesting because, you know, my expectations were peculiar this year. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. But I think given what we've seen so far, I think expectations will certainly have been raised. I think top 4 is definitely within reach. But on the other hand, I think we all know that, you know, you just don't know what to expect at Chelsea. If you've got a lot of young players playing, you know that there are going to be games where it just doesn't work, or you know, and they lose to a team they don't expect to. So, whilst I think top 4 is reachable, I still wouldn't be surprised if they don't reach top 4. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, it's looking decent so far, though. Just lastly, I just want to return a little bit to what we started out on, which is the kind of the fans being marginalised. I suppose the match-going fans, I should say, being marginalised at the expense of, well, essentially anyone who wants to sit on their backside and watch the game in their front room. Is there going to be any kind of boycott at some point, do you reckon? Because the reality is, the fact is that the people who make these decisions do just know that people are still going to want to go to football matches, so they can treat you like dirt, can't they?
I think that's exactly where look, let's be under no illusion here. The fault with this lies absolutely singularly with the broadcasters, and I think on Boxing Day this year, all of the matches that are being shown are for the first time that Amazon Prime have got involved. So there are more and different types of broadcasters coming into the market, but the blame lies at them. I mean, in fact, I think today, actually, all the chairmen of the Supporters Trust are actually meeting with the Premier League. They meet with a couple of times a year, and I'm sure this will be the main topic on the agenda today, because we just get treated like dirt, frankly. I mean, you know, it seems to me that there is little that we can do in spite of the good dialogue that we have regularly with the Premier League. Frankly, in my view, the only way this is going to change is if we collectively, as you say, Patrick, boycott a match or two, and we all have to do it at the same time, because the message needs to be sent to the Premier League and the TV companies that enough is enough. But, you know, realistically, how can you get thousands and thousands of fans to turn their nose up and say, no, we're not going to go this week because we want to send a message? It's a really difficult situation, but frankly, affirmative action like that, I think, is the only way that they'll listen.
Great stuff. Mr. Chidgey, thank you very much.
Pleasure, guys.
I'll see you on the picket line, Chidge.
You will.
That's David Chidgey, board member of the Chelsea Supporters Trust, and of course part of the Chelsea Fan Show here at Love Sport every Friday, 7 until 8 p.m. Mr. Christys.
Yes.
So the game's at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. There is a lockdown. They can't be televised. If they were allowed to be televised, would that change anything? Then all of a sudden we wouldn't have fixtures at crazy times on a Boxing Day?
Yeah, I think it's the tail wagging the dog, isn't it? Because you end up, it's all very well and good, you know, giving it to these conglomerates. But actually the whole thing about this sums up what's wrong, which is that, so, you know, traditionally, essentially, you'd buy Sky Sports, right? That was just used to be what happened. You buy Sky Sports and fine. And now, look, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be other broadcasters there, but now you have so many that it's not actually just the fact that match-going fans going to be inconvenienced. The fact that, if you want to watch any of these Boxing Day matches, like you said, you're going to have to get Amazon.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine that they're going to let you have it particularly cheap for what is going to be a fantastic day of football, it must be said. And then you tied into that, and then you probably got Sky as well for some of the other games. You're going to need a bit of BT Sport. You're going to need the whole thing. But before you know it, it's just absolutely monstrous. And actually, there are a few elements to that story. It's not just the fact that Liverpool fans are going to have to try and get back from Leicester to Liverpool on Boxing Day at about 10:30 at night, which I don't know how easy that is going to be to do. It's the fact that you're also going to have to fork out loads of money just to watch it from the comfort of your own home. Yeah. And the annoying thing is, though, is that we all do it, don't we? Or a lot of us do it.
This is why it is.
Because I really want to watch the football.
Ultimately, business is business, so they know if the customers are there and people are willing to spend the money. And at the moment, they are. Now, at some point in that flip, you see these things come in waves, and at some point it will dip and they'll have to make changes. But until then, the prices will keep getting higher for tickets. The prices will keep getting higher for subscriptions. I mean, it is what it is. And then, of course, people seeing opportunities. We spoke before on the show about a Spanish channel where Spanish football now will become subscription-based to an extent. But this is it. Again, if people want to do it, people want to see it, they'll keep paying it.
This is it, you see. And it's all very well and good us moaning about it and everything. But the answer is, can you bring yourself to live without Premier League football for, let's say, 6 months? Well, probably not, really. But that is what it would take. It is a little bit like, honestly, I actually compare the people that are making these decisions to drug dealers because they've got a clientele there who essentially need a fix. And they need that. And they know that their customer base can't live without it. They're going to be banging down the doors and climbing the walls if they don't get what they want. And so they can charge whatever they like for it.
Yeah, one of the interesting ones I heard the other day is for all those goalkeeping fans out there, there'll be a goalkeeping subscription service soon. I mean, it's just gone nuts, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has, actually,
Yeah, one of our big stories this morning, George Ford has been dropped for England's Rugby World Cup quarter-final against Australia on Saturday. More reaction to that decision with rugby commentator Sam Roberts next.
Want to know how I change a light bulb? I hold the bulb and I wait for the world to revolve around me. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Of course, not far now until the big game. England taking on Australia in the quarter-final of the England Rugby World Cup. I hope it is.
Well,
England.
it is. It might as well be.
Might as well be, absolutely. Sam Roberts, BT Sport commentator, is on the line to talk about this with us. Morning, Sam.
Good. Well, I'm not sure why I'm on to speak about it if you've already decided who's going to win it.
It's done. It's done and dusted.
Yeah.
Look,
It'll all go out.
The cricket Done. Completed.
Completed it, mate.
Completed it, mate.
Football, nearly. We got half a mark.
We did. Very true.
Yeah.
And now this is it. This will complete the summer. Eddie Jones made a couple of big calls for the game against Australia. One being, of course, George Ford being dropped to the bench, meaning Owen Farrell starts at fly half. Your thoughts?
I'm not. If it was me, I'm not 100%. I mean, there may be other reasons around it. There may be other things that he's thinking about. But I just like what George Ford does. I like what he brings. There's a little bit more impishness to his game, and I mean he's still there. He's still there thereabouts. And of course, Eddie Jones is not afraid to sort of change things up during a game, and we've seen that rather famously. You know, people brought off after 25 minutes. You know, if it's not going well, he'll change it back. You can certainly see. I mean, Owen Farrell is not a bad option. We are literally arguing about the quality of gold here. You know, they're both very, very good options, and I think it's more to do with what he sees in the Australian centre partnership, and I think Manu Tuilagi and Henry Slade, obviously he feels that there is something there that will unlock the midfield and release, you know, the likes of Johnny May and Anthony Watson and get behind them. And that's perhaps where he's looking. And I think that's the theory behind it. He's very lucky in so much as he has two top quality operators like George Ford and Owen Farrell. And for now, and because we pay him the big money to make these sort of decisions, that's what he's decided.
Yeah, well, let's hear from Eddie Jones on that decision.
Look, he's disappointed, as we've got a number of other players in our squad of 31 who are disappointed, but George understands the role he has to play. Obviously, he would have liked to have started, but he's coping with it well.
Well, someone that is starting is Billy Vunipola. How key is that to the English side?
Yeah, I think it's very key. It's key that he starts. It's key that he starts well as well. And we haven't. He's a little bit of a microcosm of the England team. We haven't quite seen the best of Billy. We haven't quite seen the best of the England team yet. And if he can get into it, and if he can get on the roll, I think he's kind of the catalyst of things that happen that are good for England. And if they can get him into the game early, if he can get a few good carries under his belt, the whole game, the whole tempo, the whole sort of thing starts to sway their way. Born in Sydney, Billy Vunipola. So, you know, very keen on beating the Australians.
Yes, there's quite a big Australian undercurrent to this England team, actually, in backroom stuff, isn't there? It's fantastic. Unlike in the cricket, of course, where most of us are South Africans. But there we go. Now, look, there's a big piece in the Times today. Look out for the battle of the gigantic centres. And it's Manu Tuilagi being one of them, of course, and Karevi as well, and both of them are in a rich vein of form. Now, Tuilagi has the most tries by a centre in 2019 at 5. But goodness me, Karevi has the most carries, the most metres, and the most clean breaks. That is, could it be where this game is won and lost, do you reckon?
My goodness, have you swallowed a stats book? What's happened to you?
I'm reading it.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, it's a little bit super simplistic to suggest that it is just down to those two and how those two get on. I mean, because obviously they are front football specialists, and so they need everyone in the forwards and their halfbacks to deliver them good quality ball. If both those players get ball that isn't great, that doesn't give them a lot of space where, you know, the defenders are closing them down, then of course they're not going to look that great. So they just need unlocking and giving a little bit of yardage. But yeah, my goodness, you're absolutely right. Karevi is an absolute monster and an extraordinary ability to stay and bounce people on his feet. You know, some big hits will go on him. You watch it on Saturday morning, some big hits will go on him, and he'll still be standing. And that's why he's got the defenders beaten thing, because he kind of, you know, sort of bounces people out of the way. And of course, Matt, we all know about Manu Tuilagi. We all know about the potential he has to sort of change a game in 40 yards, just suddenly, you know, unlock people. And it's about both sides are looking to beat the first man. What they call in rugby, getting behind the defender or behind the defence. And if that starts to happen for either side, then they've got the arsenal, they've got the artillery. Every one of those sides have it. I mean, we haven't even spoken about Michael Cheika versus Eddie Jones, which is a completely different sort of contest, which is happening almost off the pitch. That is going to be fascinating. What they say between now and sort of after the match, what they say and how they say is going to be bombastic. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. do not miss England versus Australia on Saturday morning.
Absolutely. Now, look, just lastly, there's one thing I want to get stuck into here, which is that apparently the England players have been doing some novel things to keep themselves occupied and keep themselves from succumbing to cabin fever. So, Joe Marler went to a hedgehog cafe. Yeah, that's a thing. And Tom Curry's been to a cat cafe. There's a theme here. So basically, animal-based cafes apparently have been keeping our England players entertained. They've also done things like a little bit of sightseeing and going to do some hot springs and stuff like that as well. The whole point of this is to try and make sure that there is a cohesive a unit as possible. When you look at this England side now, do you see a cohesive unit, an actual team that a team on and off the pitch?
I think so. It will be a case of how. I mean, that's a very good point. It is about how it translates. Because it does seem as though they're very much together and they're very much on the same page. But it's very much about taking that off-field stuff onto the game and bringing it all through, and infusing obviously everyone with caffeine is obviously a big part of it as well. So I think I do see it. It will be interesting. Eddie Jones, I tell you what brings them together. Eddie Jones is very, very good at creating a them and us situation, and he does it very well, even within England. Even within the, he's very, very good at creating the media versus us. Australia, and it will be all about that this week. It will all be about how everyone hates England, everyone hates us, and he will get them together like that. And so watch out for that. Watch out for a few sort of missives, a few sort of messages coming between now and the match as regards, how everyone doesn't like England and we're against the world, because that's how he views getting the team together, and it could well work.
Fantastic, Sam. Do appreciate you coming on.
Take care. See you soon.
Great stuff. Sam Roberts there, BT Sport commentator. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Aussies and the link between the two. Also, is there a chance that Sam was trying to drop in a few Shaggy lyrics there?
I thought so.
When he said about it being bombastic, it's going to be fantastic. When he said that Eddie Jones is a bit of a romantic, I just wondered whether there was like a bit of a Shaggy link there.
Yeah, I said like,
Mr. Lover.
Is it true that you were in one of these hedgehog cafes? And he said it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I
think he's.
Where has that come from?
That is what producer Guy does.
Why
that is
big
sharp.
Goodbye, Kieran. Hello, Guy.
I've just got a sneaky feeling. Right, Aussies. The link between the two.
Let's just ground this again. Go on.
The link between the two. Advisor in the camp this week, Ricky Stewart, Aussie Rugby League legend. Is there a worry? And you've seen films like this where someone will go and infiltrate like an organisation or a country.
Mate.
Could this be some big conspiracy where they've been working on this for years to infiltrate the England camp?
Look, I was sceptical. I was sceptical about this. I was even more sceptical about this than I was when Sergei Romanov was announced as Gareth Southgate's coach at the World Cup, and that to me looked pretty
Very
dodgy.
suspicious.
Lives in the Salisbury area as well, which is weird. But no, I don't think so. I've just got a feeling, right, that Checker, the Aussie coach, is seen as a little bit of a figure of ridicule among a lot of the kind of rugby managers, because they just wind him up so easily, like with ease. So I reckon they all want to pile in on him.
It's so great when you've got someone like that in the group. I feel like that's a key compartment.
Well, someone just absolutely can't take it.
No, indeed. Do stay with us. Lots to come. 3 minutes to wait.
She call me Mr. Bombastic, friendly fantastic. Touch me on me back, she says I'm Mr. Rowe.
This is Love Sport.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Lots for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Lots to come in the next hour. Actually, we'll be speaking to Dimitar Mitov, goalkeeper at Cambridge United, Bulgarian goalkeeper at Cambridge United. So it'll be interesting to get his thoughts on Monday night. Also, where Bulgaria are. It wasn't that long ago. I remember Bulgaria being a bit of a force on the national stage, but we'll be talking to him about that. We'll speak to Ken Jennings as well, sports psychologist, touching on some of Lewis Hamilton's recent comments. As always, get in touch, 0208 70 20 558 at Love Sport Radio on the socials, or you can get in touch on YouTube as well, as I see many of you have this morning. Do stay tuned. Love Sport Radio, 8 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 8. The DUP says it can't support Boris Johnson's current Brexit deal as he heads to Brussels for what could be the UK's final EU summit. The party's identified problems with customs, consent and VAT regarding Irish border arrangements, but it says it'll continue to search for what it calls a sensible deal. Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick says he's not surprised it's going down to the wire.
It was expected that this would come down to the final hours and days, and indeed it has done. So let's see what happens. We remain cautiously optimistic that a deal could be struck, but clearly there's a great deal more work to be done before we can get to that point.
Climate change protesters have been arrested as they disrupt train services across London. Angry commuters have been seen pulling a campaigner from the top of a tube train at Canning Town station. The veteran Labour MP, Dame Louise Ellman, has quit the party after 55 years of membership, saying she's deeply troubled by the growth of anti-Semitism. The 73-year-old has accused Jeremy Corbyn of being a danger to Britain. It's understood around 12,000 Asda workers face being sacked next month after refusing to sign controversial new contracts. There are concerns they'll lead to unpaid breaks and staff being forced to work bank holidays. Owen Farrell will be England's fly half for their Rugby World Cup quarter-final against Australia on Saturday. George Ford's been relegated to the substitutes bench for the game in Japan, but Farrell says Ford hasn't been dropped and still has a vital role to play.
Probably not as people are making it out to be. From the outside, George has prepared unbelievably well for this week, as he has done every other week, and obviously he's performed really well over the course of this tournament so far. So he knows how important he's going to be for this team at the weekend.
And the 1975 have been named the best act in the world today at the Q Awards. The ceremony also saw Stormzy, Foles and Lana Del Rey taking home prizes. Lewis Capaldi got best track. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport.
Good morning. Welcome to Costa.
Delicious coffee.
Sir?
Hey? Oh, flat white, please.
And would you like breakfast for £1 with that?
You what? Breakfast for £1? Really? Whoa.
Wake up to a great deal every morning at Costa Coffee. Pick up a croissant toast or porridge for just £1 with a Medio or Massimo coffee or flat white before 11 a.m. In participating stores until the 31st of October, subject to availability. Exclude seasonal drinks. See costa.co.uk/terms for full T's and C's.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Morning. Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. Let's touch on the headlines today. George Ford has been dropped by Eddie Jones for England's World Cup quarter-final versus Australia. Premier League games to be played at 8 p.m. on Boxing Day. Leicester taking on Liverpool. Pogba and De Gea are both out of the Liverpool game this Sunday, adding to Ollie's injury woes. And UK Athletics to hold independent inquiry as to how and why Mo Farah was back to stay with Salazar. And a tragic story, boxer Patrick Day has died aged 27 days after suffering brain injuries in the defeat to Charles Cornwell. I am, of course, joined by the dashing. I'll go with the dashing Patrick Christys.
Do you want
today?
something? Do you want something?
You made an effort today. Is there a reason or?
Well, I just Clive, one of our YouTube viewers, of which we have many, so make sure you do check us out on YouTube now. One of our YouTube viewers is always very keen to point out my fashion faux pas.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd try my hand at something a little more dapper today.
Yeah, no, you look good, but of course, one swallow does not make a summer. Let's talk a little bit about.
You know about that.
Let's talk a little bit about the trains, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Extinction Rebellion have really cocked up today. So, Extinction Rebellion decided that they were going to get a protester to get on top of a tube on the London Underground at Canning Town. Now, what has happened is, I think, personally, a testament to Britain, frankly, where... we're quite reserved. We're quite nice. We'll queue up, okay? We'll be polite. We'll hold the door open for a lady, and then we'll do all that kind of stuff. But then we've got a breaking point, and when we break, we go big. And this guy decided that he was going to get on top of a tube, and he was making a point at Canning Town. He was getting on top of a tube, and he was going, this is the future of our planet. It's the future of our children. And literally the wave of coffee cups that get thrown at him, bags, and he gets dragged off the tube by people, commuters. They just drag him off and lob him into the crowd. It was like when you just toss a little bit of meat into a lion enclosure at a zoo. It was like that. And this guy's getting tossed around and thrown away. I just thought, well done, Britain. I think, though, just as a note, disrupting morning commuters on public transport on their way into work is not going to win the hearts and minds of the nation, is it?
Well, everyone's obviously desperate to get to work.
This is it. This is what I don't understand, all right? So, like someone like Richard Branson, who brackets himself as an environmentalist, you own a fleet of aircraft, mate. All right, you own a fleet of aircraft. Why aren't we going to Necker Island to go and just trap him there until he decides to do something about the ruddy ozone layer? Why is it that we're not shackling ourselves to people like Xi Jinping at China, who is just funneling gases into the ozone layer at a rate of knots? More noxious gases, actually, than the Extinction Rebellion lot are giving off, which is really saying something. Why aren't we going right to the core of the problem? With the best will in the world, disrupting some bloke called Steve on his way in from Canning Town as he desperately tries to get to the job he has to do to feed his kids is not really the way to go about this.
No.
It's public transport as well. This is the issue. At no point are Extinction Rebellion saying, the real plight on our environment is the tube. No, of course it isn't. Of course it's not. It's all the other stuff that we do. It's the plastics in the ocean. It's the gases in the ozone layer. It's the aircraft. It's all of that jazz, right? It's not the fact that people need to get to work in the morning.
I guess the question is, because a couple of, a good example, Lewis Hamilton as well, we spoke about a lot yesterday. And of course, look, are things moving quickly enough? Because I guess, and again, I don't know exactly what it is that is being asked for. Look, change. That's such a broad term. I want change. All right, I want change.
Well, what they want, and I was obviously asked one of the Extinction Rebellion things, just having a chat with some of them, and what they want is the complete restructuring of the world society, global society, which I do get, and I am fearful that, the world that my children, if I'm ever unlucky enough to have kids, of course, the world that they may be brought into would end soon. But I think this is the thing, is it's optics, isn't it? It's that word optics. And the idea that if you chained yourself to Boris Johnson's leg and kept him there until he decided to agree some kind of eco-friendly policy, that's something that I think might gain a bit of traction and that people might go, yeah, all right, okay, that's direct action. But by sitting on top of a tube at Canning Town, the platform was full of people who were just going to try and earn a crust, full of people who, frankly, might lose their job if they're late. You never know. Rendering people unemployed, late for work, is not the way to go about doing it. It's not the way to go about kind of, getting people to adopt your cause, is it?
Indeed. Patrick Christys, Britain. We'll be back tomorrow.
Patrick Christys, Britain. Yes.
Let's talk.
It's a dark bleak place, isn't it? It's just me sat on top of Downing Street singing Rule Britannia.
Yeah.
That's all it is, over and over again.
Bring back the glory days.
Yeah.
Mo
The
Farah.
sun will never set on the British Empire.
I like a picture of Winston Churchill. I don't know why. Mo Farah. Let's talk Mo Farah.
Oh, okay.
Because
so
I say Mo Farah. There's going to be an inquiry, isn't that, from British Athletics, UK Athletics?
Yes, so this is it. So UK Athletics is set to announce an independent review of its decision to allow Mo Farah to continue working with Alberto Salazar after doping allegations had been made against the now disgraced coach. So the UK Athletics Board is under pressure from UK Sport, and it met yesterday and is ready to appoint an independent panel to review the process it employed in 2015 after an investigation was launched by the United States Anti-Doping Agency into Salazar and the Nike Oregon project. Bit of context with that. Salazar was found guilty of various performance-enhancing offences, including the transportation and use of testosterone and other performance-enhancing drugs as well. Also the use of intravenous drips and various other banned things on top of that. Now, the USADA inquiry was triggered by BBC Panorama's documentary into this, and essentially the result of that was a little bit of a whitewash, and this is why a lot of the complaints have been made about it, saying that it had no concerns about it all. Well, now Alberto Salazar is proven to have been what I think many people thought he was for quite a while, and this is why they're saying, well, obviously that report was just nuts. It was nothing, was it? So Neil Black, who was one of the performance directors there, and also was one of Mo Farah's chief physios as recently as the Chicago Marathon, by the way, which I think was last week, maybe the week before, when Mo Farah came 8th. Yeah, last week. And yeah, so now they're setting up this panel. The concern that I would have with this is like with most things, which is that once you say you're investigating something, so we saw it with a lot of the Brexit supporting groups during the referendum and then after the referendum. What you do is you slap an investigation on them, and then you make that investigation run as long as possible, so it keeps people trapped in this kind of vortex of the unknown, basically. And it allows you, as well, as a UK athletics body, to say, we're not going to comment on this until our investigation has finished. And this buys them time. So let's just say this investigation goes on for a year, which a lot of these tend to. You know, we saw it with all kinds of investigations. The investigation into the Iraq War, for example, went on for years and years and years. And ultimately, they usually reveal absolutely nothing. And they usually come to no conclusion. But what they think is, basically, let's go to the Winchester and wait for this to blow over. That's basically what that is.
Is that what you think it is, yeah?
Oh, massively so. I would be very, very surprised if anything really came of this, because Mo Farah has been the pin-up boy for British athletics for a very, very long time. And with good reason. His heroics at various Olympic Games have been magnificent. But they are not going to want to dig him out. It's not going to be seen as being good for the sport, and it's not going to be seen as being good for UK athletics. And they've already got rid of Neil Black, who was that performance director. And I personally think, I would love it if I was wrong, actually. I would love it if I was wrong. Is that they will say, okay, well, there was a bit of an issue here. We shouldn't have allowed this to happen, but it has now stopped, and this is where we are.
Is it already tarnished, though? This is the point, right? So that's kind of, as much as you say, they won't want to dig too deep into, say, Mo Farah, what have you. But the problem is, yes, right now, Mo Farah is innocent, of course. He is innocent, and that will say the case. But there is a dark cloud. Like, the questions he was asked, the interview we played recently a few days ago, and he went down a rather strange line saying he'd seen it before with Sterling, seen it before with Lewis Hamilton, and he didn't really answer the question, didn't want to answer the question, which was quite a simple one, which was, with Salazar being banned for 4 years, is that going to impact negatively on you? Like, are people going to question? Which, of course, they are. And, you know, are you disappointed? I think the question was, are you disappointed that he's been, been banned for 4 years? So I think, I don't know, it just feels like we're in limbo a little bit at the moment. I'd love something to come out that was definitive, where it was, you know, I gave a random suggestion the other day, like a lie detector or something. So it was like, look, can we just know that he is 100% so we can still see him in the same light that we've seen him over the last however many years, and see him as this national hero, Sir Mo Farah. Like, I don't know, there is this cloud now. So I'd love just to have, and I don't know, maybe there isn't a way in which we can get that.
But it's kind of this monster that just keeps feeding itself. And it's not just athletics as well. It's all sport, for example, really, because, you know, there is that relentless pursuit for success, and ultimately you are judged on how many victories you have across all sports. That's the yardstick with which we measure success, isn't it? How many gold medals have you got? How many wins have you got, etc. And if that is the case, and these people that are responsible for delivering those, your performance directors, your heads of athletics, your heads of cycling, they will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. That's what happened with Salazar. The Nike set up the Oregon Project, but must have been billions and billions funneled into that. Well, he's got to get results at the end of it, and he's going up against the world's best. And so is it any shock that he does things like test performance-enhancing drugs on his own kids which he did, in order to try and glean the best out of these athletes? And so it is this self-fulfilling kind of prophecy, really, which if you set yourself these standards, you sack someone if they don't meet these incredibly high standards, and then, you sack them as well when they found out that they've cheated in order to get those high standards. So just maybe there needs to be a slight reevaluation of our attitude towards elite-level sport, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I agree. Monster that keeps feeding itself, indeed. Actually, John, while I think about it, have you got your food coming up?
Not yet, and I'm about to get very angry.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. I want to talk a bit about Man United. Suffered a big blow with Paul Pogba and David De Gea being ruled out of their game against Liverpool on Sunday. Current injury crisis has shown everyone how thin their squad is. Papers today reporting that United could be looking to sign up to 6 players in the next 2 transfer windows. Here's manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer speaking about his transfer plans at yesterday's press conference.
We are planning, we are looking, we're finding our targets. Just before the transfer window ended, no, they weren't there. The ready-made players. But the resources are there if the right players are available.
So who are the right players?
Well, they apparently want Moussa Dembele at Lyon, Mario Mandzukic, who is at Juventus. There are a couple of others being lined up as well. Saul at Atletico. So, well, they clearly deem those to be the right players. There's a bit of a mishmash there, though, isn't there, between the ages of those players and potentially the style of which as well. If there is a youthful rebuild going on at Manchester United, well, Mandzukic is 33.
Yeah, and obviously being linked with the new manager too, potentially Allegri, obviously names coming up, who worked with Mandzukic and Pogba. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is getting the backing very much of the board, so...
Yeah, I just wonder if there's a bit more going on here, because the Glazers look like they might be about to sell up. Mike Glazer is the first one who's decided that he looks like he's going to sell his 13% stake in the club. And I just wonder whether or not they're looking at it and going, you know what, we've pumped $1 billion into this. And they have, by the way, since Ed Woodward became in charge, they've basically tried to spend about £1 billion on players. Whether they're looking at it and they're looking at the current league spot, 2 points off the relegation zone. They've got a Norwegian PE teacher in the shape of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there in charge of the team, and they're thinking, maybe we need to get out of here. And I just wonder if that is the slightly bigger picture at play here, which is that potentially Manchester United, as the force that we have known it as, is now actually about to be completely over. And United fans have to maybe accept the fact that the owners could go, and that might change everything, and that realistically maybe it's about to just become a mid-table club.
Well, if the owners go, though, I guess a lot of fans might see that as a positive thing, because it's not going to be someone that just buys them who's your fan that buys them. It would be a huge organisation that would need to, because you're looking at a couple of billion, you'd think.
Well, there are persistent rumours about the Saudi royal family in Manchester United, and there can be no smoke without fire, especially in Saudi Arabia. And I've had to ask myself this question of, given that I kind of give it large about human rights and things like that, how desperate am I for Manchester United to win another league title? Would I go, I know that you hacked a journalist to death in a Turkish embassy. I know that you lobbed their heads off about 50 gay people in Riyadh the other week. I know that you did all that. But I do want some silverware.
But you promised me Lionel Messi.
I'd love it. I'd love it if we re-signed Ronaldo.
Well, Jim Radcliffe, interestingly, Man United fan as a kid. Wealthiest man in Britain, I believe.
Yeah. I think he's just invested quite heavily in the French league, hasn't he?
For a French team, yeah.
Yeah, and he sees that as being an up-and-coming market. I think he sees that the Premier League has potentially peaked.
I think it was Nice. Is it Nice he bought?
Yeah, it's Nice. Yeah, it is Nice.
It's a nice investment.
Oh, stop it!
What?
So he's invested heavily in Nice. He's obviously got involved with the cycling as well, Team Ineos. Yeah. I don't know if he sees the Premier League as being a market that is still open to him in a profitability sense. I wonder whether he feels like it's been done. But I mean, only Jim Ratcliffe will be able to know. Born in a council house in Salford, Jim Ratcliffe, social mobility at its finest.
There you go. Earlier we had producer guy teased us with a row between two of the biggest names in golf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that shortly.
I believe in reincarnation. I've left everything in my will to me.
This
is Love Sport. Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F, face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A, arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S, speech. Is their speech slurred? T, time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, and soon to be producer Guy, because he teased us earlier. And we've had to wait a long time for this to come out. But finally, Guy comes in. Don't want to build it up too much, but I'm sure this is going to be epic.
Drum roll, please. Yeah, what's the... here it is. No, it is good. It is good.
Okay.
It is the two biggest active names in golf, according to the world rankings anyway. I think Tiger Woods would probably have something to say about that. But Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy, is a bit of a war of words developing between the two of them. So they are the top 2 ranked players in the world. They are both, of course, tied on 4 majors. Only a couple of active players have more than that, of course. But the headline that I'm reading today in the Daily Telegraph is Koepka ridicules notion of rivalry with McIlroy. And I have to say, while I do like Rory McIlroy as both a golfer and as a person, I'm quite enjoying this little story and these quotes from Brooks Koepka. So what Brooks Koepka has said is, having been asked about his supposed burgeoning rivalry with Rory McIlroy, he's basically said, what rivalry? He says, Rory McIlroy hasn't won a major since I've been on the tour, which is a reminder of how meteoric Brooks Koepka's rise has been, because remember, there's only a year between the two of them, but Brooks Koepka didn't come to the PGA Tour, the top-level American Tour, until 2015, when he was already 25. By that stage, Rory McIlroy, then just 26, had won 4 majors. We would talk about Rory McIlroy breaking Tiger's record, breaking Jack Nicklaus's record, and yet 5 years on, he hasn't added to that total. Meanwhile, Brooks Koepka, Johnny come lately, has come along. He's won 4 majors in the blink of an eye. And Brooks Koepka, I guess justifiably, is saying there isn't a rivalry here. In the time I've been on the tour, he's won no majors, I've won 4. If the fans want to think about it like that, then fine. But that's not how I see it. I'm number 1 in the world, and these are his quotes. I'm looking ahead, I'm not looking back.
I just can't understand how Rory McIlroy is still world number 2.
Well, he did win 3 tournaments this year. He was voted the PGA Player of the Year, which was a little bit outrageous, given that Koepka won a major and came runner-up in 2 others. Rory won none, of course.
Is he not a little bit like that lad at school? Like, you know, your school's football team, or like your local club's football team, like, you know, when you were growing up, where there's always a player who once or twice, maybe 3 times a season, will just be unplayable. Like, it'll be absolutely fantastic. But regularly, actually, they'll be woeful.
No.
But they're still seen as this kind of luxury player, this great player. If anyone's going to make it, it's going to be them.
I think it's more the player that performs against the lesser clubs but then as soon as he comes up against the big clubs, gets a bit... Do you know what I mean? I suppose the golf example, Rory McIlroy isn't this because he's now won the majors, but Colin Montgomery back in the day was a great example where on the tour golf, wins tournament after tournament, brilliant, then suddenly came to a major. And I guess because there is that much more pressure, you've got 4 opportunities a year. There's only a certain number of opportunities you're going to have in a career to win a number of... And of course, if you just happen to have 4 bad rounds... The one for me this year, which one was it? His home course.
Yeah, Portrush, the Open.
Yeah,
when he shot 78, I think it was, on the opening day.
Won.
And
which for
he
me,
played himself out of contention. And what did he do the next
up.
day, by the way? He shot 6 under par and only missed the cut by a shot. And you're just like, Rory, for goodness sake, all you needed to do was not have a disaster on the first day.
That's psychological.
But it is, and this is my point. When you think about someone who is a world leader in anything, you think about someone who, when it's the biggest stage, when the chips are down, that's the person you can rely on.
100%.
But it's the opposite for me with Rory McIlroy. I go, the bigger the stage, it feels to me like the more likely he is to choke.
Yeah.
And that sort of performance, like we just talked about at Portrush, where he played badly to start with and then kind of recovered it. We've seen that a few other times at the PGA. I think he was 5 over after 3 holes, and he ended up having his best major finish of the year at that major. He came 8th, which isn't brilliant, but it was an impressive comeback. But it's like he has to lose it all, but lose any hope before regaining it. And it's weird because when he was younger, he didn't have that. He had that ability to lead from the front, Tiger Woods-esque, and that's why we talked about him in the way we did. And it's a nice comparison with Colin Montgomery because obviously famously more runner-up finishes than anyone else at majors except Jack Nicklaus, and of course more winner of the European Order of Merit award than any other player ever. So a guy who never really did what he could on the major stage.
Whereas Johnny Come Lately, as we've just named him, could you imagine if your name was Johnny Come Lately?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. So he's got a very different mindset. He seems for me, and that's... You look at the two, and in terms of technical ability between the two, without being the biggest golf expert, love my golf, but without being the biggest, I wouldn't necessarily say, Brooks Koepka's got loads more ability. I don't think that's the case. I just think he's got the best mindset in golf, the strongest mindset in golf.
I completely agree. I love Brooks Koepka, and I think he's actually underappreciated as a sportsman as a whole, because not only is he the best golfer in the world and has been for probably 2 years now, he says the right things about the game. He's a big advocate of quickening up the game. He openly hits out at people. He taps his watch if his playing partner's playing too slowly. He's a guy that I think wants the game to be played in a way that will make it more popular to fans, and he plays really good golf as well, which is what people like watching. I think it would be brilliant for the sport if they could develop some sort of rivalry, one that we haven't had since maybe Woods Mickelson 15 years ago, that never maybe even became quite as good as it could have. These two guys are brilliant players, the best we've had really since Tiger and his pomp. If Rory could raise his game at majors from next year onwards, it'd be brilliant to watch. But I think Brooks Koepka is quite right to say there's no real rivalry at the moment. Rory McIlroy did beat him in Memphis a couple of months ago, but by and large, Brooks Koepka's had the better of him. I think he's got every right to say it's not been a real rivalry yet, but possibly one for the future. But I thought it was an interesting little war of words that's developed, and it'll be interesting to see if Rory responds, a bit like Ronnie O'Sullivan hit back at Barry Hearn's comments that we were talking about earlier, calling Barry Hearn not even in the Conference League of promoters, after Barry Hearn said he was deadly dull and boring for his comments about Crawley. But we've had enough about that. Shall we talk a little bit as well about this story in the Daily Mail today that I quite like? It's an exclusive from Matt Hughes, and it's about how Amazon wanted to do a kind of fly-on-the-wall documentary about the England rugby team. And it would have been similar, I guess, to what they did with Manchester City. They've done it, I think, with the All Blacks as well, the New Zealand rugby team. They've done it with the Arizona Cardinals, the NFL team. They've done it before, but the RFU, the FA of rugby, basically said no. Do you think that was a good call? There were millions of pounds on the table to make this documentary, but they said ultimately it could be detrimental, it could be a distraction.
Well, it must be a distraction, mustn't it? I mean, we have cameras in the studio here now, and ever since we put them in,
it's gone downhill.
We've been, massively.
Yeah.
We've been distracted so much. You can watch on YouTube, by the way, do. But it's been a huge distraction.
Rubbish.
No, but it's this thing of, it must be a distraction. And also, though, Eddie Jones, for the future, must want to preserve some of his training methods, his tactics, the way he approaches it.
Well, I think that must be a part of it, but I don't know about you guys, but when I watched the Manchester City one, I was left feeling really disappointed for 2 reasons. One, I thought it's not a documentary, it's not journalism, it's more PR for Manchester City. And I know it was an unfortunate coincidence in that sense that they had that season that they did, but it wasn't trying to investigate things, it was just trying to show off how brilliant Man City were. And also, the thing I think we all wanted to see was, what does Pep do? What does Pep say? But we didn't get it because he doesn't want those secrets to be out there. I get that. But Eddie Jones, likewise, wouldn't have let us see some of his training methods or his team talks and things like that. That's what we want to see, isn't it?
It is, but you're right. It would have to be there'd be big discussions. If something like that goes through, it's a question of what can you, what can't you, because certain things have to remain secret, and they're going to want to present a certain narrative. But then you're right, that does sanitise it. Of course it does. But I don't think you can have the...
But also, right, in this day and age now, what you've got there is a squad of however many big, burly, rugby-playing, no-nonsense blokes led by quite a small, angry Australian man.
Ah, look, mate, it's a game of rugby.
Yeah, exactly. How often are some of those people going to come out with something that in today's culture would be deemed deeply offensive?
Oh,
yeah,
regularly.
right.
If there were cameras in the changing room, well, I mean, I've told you some of the stories off air, which
Disgusting.
Horrendous,
mate.
I couldn't
didn't
tell
even
them
know
on
you
there.
could do that with that.
Yeah, I know.
Or him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, anywho. But no, but you're right. If there were cameras in that changing room, that is not fit for TV.
Thing is, it's one of those, it's just diametrically opposed things. It's the thing, I think, as an amateur or as a non-sports person, you are more interested to know than anything else. And yet, if you're part of it, you are more protective of what goes on in that environment. I've been really surprised that so many teams have let cameras in, but as I say, it hasn't always been with the effect that you actually want. But I'm quite pleased. I think it would have been a distraction, as much as I'd be intrigued to see a bit more. Apparently Eddie Jones was up for it, by the way. It was the RFU,
Really?
the board, saying no, it's a bit of a risk, and also a potential conflict of interest between former England captain Will Carling, who's been involved in the setup, been a leadership consultant, but also has a financial involvement in one of the production companies that would have been making it. So I think they deemed that a little bit inappropriate as well. But I'm sure if we do go all the way and win the World Cup, there will be some sort of film made of it afterwards. I know there was about the 2003 team, and that would be well worth a watch, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, if we do win the World Cup, no doubt we'll be calling for an open-top bus once again.
Oh, 100%.
Worst case scenario, they can just go to the Oval and just,
yeah, just go to the Oval and watch a lot of kids bunk off school.
Just rock up at Twickenham with no one there and sign a few autographs. That'd be good, wouldn't it? It'd be really good. Yeah, I hope we do, because then I'm starting to hope to get some professional work for my Eddie Jones impression, which I am working on day by day.
It's impressive. I was going to say that. In fairness, I instantly, when he started talking, it was like Eddie was in the room.
You do a good Michael Owen as well, actually, don't you?
Ah, look, mate, it's a game
That's
of rugby.
Eddie Jones. That's Eddie Jones.
Well, I wanted to focus on the rugby, to be honest, Patrick, because the rugby's bigger at the moment, and I can show you my trophy cabinet if no.
You've done well. You've done well. Yeah, fantastic.
Out of practice.
Do the one that you do of the Nigerian president.
Patrick.
Anyway,
do you want to talk very quickly about Harry Winks?
I do.
Or has the moment passed?
Should we tease again?
Let's tease again.
Let's tease again. We're going to be talking about Harry Winks pretty shortly, I am sure. We're going to be speaking to Ken Jennings, sports psychologist, shortly. We've actually got Dimitar Mitov, Cambridge United goalkeeper, Bulgarian goalkeeper, coming on later in the hour. We're also going to be speaking, a little bit of an exclusive, Carl Fletcher, the new Leyton Orient manager, speaking to him just after 9. The time is 8:30.
Love sport.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
This is Love Sport.
Last for breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Just to touch on those top stories this morning. George Ford dropped by Eddie Jones for England's World Cup quarter-final. Premier League game to be played at 8 p.m. on Boxing Day. Leicester taking on Liverpool. Pogba and De Gea are both out of the Liverpool game this weekend, adding to Ollie's injury woes. UK Athletics to hold independent inquiry into how and why Mo Farah was back to stay with Salazar, and boxer Patrick Day tragically dies at the age of 27 days after suffering brain injuries in a defeat to Charles Cornwell. There's also a story in regards to the Extinction Rebellion. They're being pulled off trains, I believe.
Yes, so the Extinction Rebellion lot tried to get on, well, did actually get on top of a train at Canning Town, a tube at Canning Town. And the British commuters have just, I think, collectively just gone, no.
Just yanked him off.
Not anymore. Yep. And so they just tugged him off the train, really forcefully, actually. And they were doing things like throwing coffee cups at him, throwing rucksacks at him, really just beating him. And then he came off, and they just pulled him off the train and lobbed him onto the platform. And they got on the train and went to work.
Isn't it a bit dangerous to pull him off?
Well, you would have thought so, actually, because he could have got electrocuted on the track.
Yeah.
But actually, I think at this point we've stopped caring, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've stopped caring about them. So yeah, basically, he was on top of the train, and you see the videos now on Twitter. Just go and have a look at it. Type in Canning Town on Twitter.
Quite dramatic.
It was dramatic, actually, but also thoroughly deserved, because it's self-defeating that for Extinction Rebellion. They are a group made up of an eclectic range of people, it must be said, and at its core, they do care, because at its core, they just don't want us all to die, which, we can't really disagree with some mornings, mate. But they can't really disagree with it. So what I would suggest, though, is the way of getting people on board, for want of a better phrase, is not to climb on top of a tube and rush hour in the morning and disrupt everyone getting into work.
Is there, everyone likes to be part of something. It's kind of like a human behaviour, isn't it? You're part of a group. You've obviously got your friendship groups, etc. This has obviously now become something, and it's getting bigger all the time, and people will feel, I suppose, worthy, validated, whatever you want to say, being part of this. I suppose the issue will always be if people are just doing it for that reason and not fully understanding what the cause is.
But I get that. I think a lot of them maybe haven't felt accepted by society for a very long time, and now they've found a group where they can fit in. But what annoys me more than anything is these kind of half-witted celebrities that are piling on this bandwagon, because they all employ PR experts, don't they? And they go, oh, no, you have got to start waxing lyrical about the environment. It's all anyone cares about now. You need to be seen at Extinction Rebellion. Before, back in the day, The Sun did a thing where they invited a load of celebrities to an event that they didn't tell them what it was. And they walked down a red carpet and they got inside. And after about 10 minutes, someone came out and they opened a paper bag. And they went, you've just come to the opening of a paper bag. Well, that used to be the thing, didn't it? You'd be seen with celeb mates at red carpet events. And now celebs like Benedict Cumberbatch, who does an advert for China's state-owned car manufacturer, for goodness sake, is going off about the environment. Frothing load of hypocrites.
Well, there you go. What do you think, Otoe? 7020 558. We're going to be speaking to Ken Jennings in about 30 seconds.
Just quickly. Lewis Hamilton, he's sponsored by a petrol company, drives a supercar, has a £30 million collection of supercars and flies a private jet, but he cares about the environment.
Well, he's actually going to be one of the people we are talking about too, Ken, in about 30 seconds' time.
Love sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. We've got a very special guest on the line, Ken Jennings, sports psychologist, going to go through a few stories with us at the moment, a few people. Interested to get his thoughts, actually. In fact, Ken is on the line right now. Morning, Ken.
Morning, Richard. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well too. A couple of things I want to touch on this morning, and I'm sure you've seen some of the comments from Lewis Hamilton. Put out an interesting post a day or two back, which got a few people talking, and he touched on the fact, essentially not wanting to be part of this world anymore. Patrick?
He said people don't care about the world anymore. But obviously, you know, he did kind of caught controversy with that because, as I've said, he has a £30 million fleet of sports cars. Certainly at one point did have a private jet, if not still, and is sponsored by Petronas, which I believe is a Malaysian-based oil and gas company. So people were quick to point out that despite the fact that you've got a plant-based diet, Lewis, maybe there's some headway that could be made there. What do you make of all that?
Well, look, it's difficult to you say what I'll make of it, but I think we got to see athletes as human beings as well. So they're not actually machines. And obviously, it seems that Lewis has maybe got a sort of a sensitivity towards issues that are global issues fundamentally. But it's not unusual for an athlete to feel that way, because I think the issue sometimes is that we as public or the media tend to think that athletes are perfect, but they're not.
Yeah, what I'm really keen to get your thoughts on is when you become somebody who is of the kind of status of a Lewis Hamilton, so you're massive, right, and rightly so, and that's just purely because of your sporting excellence. You almost transcend sport. You become this type of person that is seen as like operating on a different precipice to maybe as mere mortals that I certainly am. Does that go to your head? What psychological effect does that have where everywhere you go there's paparazzi? The amount of money you've got in your bank, every time you get behind the wheel of a Formula One car, pretty much you win. The global fame, the women, the whole thing that comes with it. What does that do to you psychologically?
Yeah, well, I think it puts a huge amount of pressure on you because fundamentally you don't have much private space for yourself. So there's this constant focus on you, and that in itself sort of adds to the pressure of presenting almost a perfect image to the outside world, and that's where when maybe a comment is made that like he did when he made the post, it tends to get people worried or tends to get people to question his mental state. But I don't think we should see it that way. It's more the fact that constantly we are expecting top athletes to be perfect. We expect top athletes to almost exhibit an abnormal amount of normality, if you think of it that way. So they shouldn't show any form of vulnerability. They shouldn't show any form of maybe, let's call it, weakness.
Yeah.
And because as soon as they do that, it tends to sort of break the image that we have of them.
Yeah, fair enough. I just want to move on and have a little bit of a chat about the England football team, actually, because apparently they're undergoing, or some players anyway, are undergoing counselling off the back of what was pretty persistent and horrific racial abuse, obviously in Bulgaria. They've had it elsewhere as well, and it is unfortunately likely that they will probably have it again at some point. So they're undergoing counselling at the moment. I'm just keen to get again your take on what maybe that might entail and what may be the psychological effect of, for example, being a black player in an England team and seeing a load of Bulgarian Nazis making monkey noises at you.
Yeah, look, I think that's a slightly different issue in the sense of, the team was probably dealing with a lot of hostility that was coming from sort of like white supremacist, sort of Nazi type of perspective, and it's like an attack that the team had to deal with, and within the team, I suppose individuals might have felt quite threatened, and maybe even physically threatened, but certainly emotionally threatened by the hostility of let's say, the opposing supporters, especially that the match was being played on their home turf as such. This is not an unusual thing, though. The extremeness of it might have been unusual. But teams that travel away and play in, call it, hostile territories, basically have to encounter attack and this abuse. It's very unfortunate. I think the world is moving in that particular way as well, where there's a lot of abuse against people who are seen to be different. We're talking about sexism, ageism, even in terms of racism and that sort of thing. So I see that as a different process or phenomenon to the Lewis Hamilton, story that we were talking about.
Just want to touch one more on Lewis Hamilton and a slightly different side of things. I've seen this elsewhere, and in fact, I think it was one of the guys, Anthony Robbins, one of the life coaches, who talks about this, about how you strive so much for something in your career, and Patrick touched on it, where you have everything, and you get to the point where everything you've ever dreamed of, you suddenly possess. And he's won the World Championship 5 times. He's a good-looking guy. He's got his health. It's everything that you would want, all the material stuff you would want. But then you get to a point when there is that realization that actually maybe it's a bit of a disappointment, which. Is that a thing where people get to that point where suddenly it is the realization that maybe there is something a bit more, or maybe all the things they thought they wanted isn't necessarily what they want, and that in itself can cause a bit of an issue?
Yeah, very definitely. But I think there's a difference between, say, materialistic achievements in terms of getting everything that you want, and then there's nothing more to really achieve. But let's say we talk about that on like a materialistic level. But then, there's far more to a human being. There's the whole spiritual sort of domain, and there's the emotional element. And a lot of, I think, athletes, and not only athletes, I'm talking about sort of top professional people as well, who've achieved everything. At that end point of arriving at the destination, there's a sense of emptiness at times if they feel that the other parts of their lives that are not as meaningful as maybe just the materialistic aspect of their lives. And I think Lewis Hamilton has sort of like touched on global issues, or issues that fundamentally should concern most human beings. So and I think he's made this known, and I think he can actually be an ambassador to this, the ambassador to, issues like, for example, poverty, or issues in terms of global warming, and issues in terms of lifestyle. So he can be an ambassador to this, because, certainly, like you say, he's a very well-known figure, and so he can become a voice.
Absolutely, Ken. Really appreciate you joining us. Ken Jennings, their sports psychologist, giving us a bit of an insight as to the mind of the likes of Lewis Hamilton, England football team, etc. at the moment. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, I think it is fascinating, really, because I've said the same thing a little bit about like child stars. So when you see these things like on the front of the Sun today, and I see obviously in a lot of papers about the kind of celebrity hypocrites when it comes to Extinction Rebellion, and I think, how can you do that? Like, I know that I'm not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but I always try and not be a frothing hypocrite about stuff. Like, I do kind of call it as I see it and tend to stick by it. However, absolutely outrageous and sometimes incorrect. But when you become a celebrity and a superstar, that seems to change. And so you got the likes of Lewis Hamilton, who's a petrol head, of course, who's going on about the environment. But I think it's something in it, which is that, like with Justin Bieber, from the age of 10. All you known is full stadiums full of fans screaming at you, throwing themselves at you everywhere you go, paparazzi. You open any newspaper and you're in it, and it's all completely bonkers. Your handle on reality must just be completely off, way off. And I think about probably going on with Prince Harry and the royal family at the minute, which is, I think, I get the impression that, given that they've had to hire a load of PR people and a load of experts like that, they are so confused about what the public perception is and what their reality is, and I think that this is kind of where we are at the minute. And but it is excusable. I just wish they'd shut up a bit.
I think you talk some sense, Patrick. Christys,
People
Brennan, what do you
say
think?
the same about me, though.
What do you think? 0208 70 20 558, 14 minutes to 9.
Putin is a great singer. I love him in that musical, Putin on the Ritz.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Plenty going on in the world of sport. We're going to touch briefly on what happened on Monday night. Of course, England took on Bulgaria. A few issues. It's still all over the papers today.
Still all over the papers. Obviously, there was horrific racism at the England-Bulgaria game. Now, excuse me, Bulgaria legend Christos Stoichkov was broken down in tears as he called for his nation to be banned for 5 years over their racism shame. He's Bulgaria's greatest ever player. Don't tell Dimitar Berbatov, of course. But unfortunately, he was once accused of racism himself. But he says he was so appalled by the vile abuse hurled at England's black players during Monday's Euro 2020 qualifier in Sofia that he says that there needs to be tougher punishments. So, you know, this is it, isn't it? Which in terms of how much do you punish them?
Yeah, well, look, delighted to say we've got a really special guest on the line. Cambridge United goalkeeper, Bulgarian goalkeeper, Dimitar Mitov on the line. Morning, Dimitar.
Morning.
Morning. I've got loads of questions in regards to Bulgaria. I want to ask about where the national team are at the moment. Certainly seeing them play on Monday night. It's not the Bulgaria that I remember from when I was a kid, certainly. We touched on a few of the star players that they've had over the years. First, though, we have to touch on this. Stoichkov is on the back pages of the papers today. What was your take on what happened on Monday night?
Well, I was absolutely disgusted with what happened on Monday night. You know, it's not right. Can't be happening 2019, and it was just, for me, that was just a group of people, a group of individuals just trying to, you know, ruin the game, ruin the, you know, the name of our beautiful country. And I hope these people get find out and just brought to justice. And I've actually seen this morning in Bulgaria government, they've actually fined 5 of the people that have been racist towards the English players, and they've been brought to justice. So it's a good thing, but it should never happen in the first place.
How did you find it? Because obviously you grew up there, you made your way over to England now, and I know we touched on this privately about the upbringing you had in terms of a football sense, but was it something you were aware of when you were there in games you played? If there were black players in your team, did you ever experience or see people around you experience it?
No, I have never seen that before. That's the first time I've actually seen our country being racism for anything, and I was really surprised to see it. I thought I'd never see it, and I was really gutted to see it.
Yeah, and just touching on the players themselves, you mentioned Stoichkov, Patrick's mentioned Berbatov as well, of course, fantastic player. Watching the team on Monday, and you mentioned this to me, I didn't realise it's been so long since Bulgaria made a major tournament. What's happened? Because it wasn't so long ago that they did produce some top superstars.
I actually don't have really answer to be fair for this, because I don't know. After Berbatov and Petrov, they retired, we didn't really have that, world-known player, to play in the big leagues and stuff. And like I said before to you, 2004 was the last major tournament, which was like 15 years ago. It's way too long. So I actually don't know what happened. Hopefully this is going to turn around soon and we're going to be back with the best.
Yeah, well, I want to ask a bit about your upbringing as well, because obviously you're doing brilliantly now, Cambridge United. But obviously you did grow up in Bulgaria. What was the environment like for learning your trade? So we look here, you've got your Chelseas, your Man Cities, the most incredible facilities, arguably the best facilities in the world. How did you learn to get to the level that you did in Bulgaria? Were there a lot of goalkeeper coaches? Was there a lot of quality training?
Well, it was really difficult for, especially for me. I was actually playing in Stoichkov Academy before I moved to England. And at the time we didn't have a goalie coach, so he didn't really do anything. I was just joining with the players in boxes, passes and stuff. And then for the games, I was just jumping in goal. So it was really, really difficult, for a young goalkeeper trying to, learn the game. And when I turned 16, I actually moved to the first team at the time. There was a goalie coach as well, so I was actually doing a little bit of goalie training. But like you said, in Chelsea here, Man City, they have the best facilities in the world. They have the best chance possible to make it to the top level, and it's really different where I come from, because we don't have that, and you really need to work hard to achieve your dreams.
Yeah, of course. And just touching briefly on yourself now, and of course you're with Cambridge. You guys, let's say you're 16th in the league, but of course it's so tight. You're only a few points off the playoff. You're actually coming up against Exeter at the weekend, of course, second in the league. Be a tough game, no doubt. But what are the hopes for Cambridge this season?
Well, we play every game, every game as it comes. We take every game as it comes. We're trying to win every game, of course. And, yeah, it's a tough league, but like, in this league, anything can happen. Any team can beat any team, and one win puts you again in the fight for the playoffs. So we're going on Saturday to win, trying our best, and hopefully we get the result.
Hi, Dimitar. Patrick here. Thank you so much for coming on. It's great to have you on the show. And look, I understand that you obviously were so gutted to see what happened on Monday night, and it must have been hard for you to watch, because that's, I imagine, not a representation of your country that you know. That's not the Bulgaria that you know. But I just want to get your take on, look, if we played the game again tomorrow, do you think anything like that would happen again? Do you think that Bulgaria should maybe face some kind of ban for a period of time just to make sure they get it sorted?
Well, I don't think it will happen again, because like I said to you, it was a group of individual people that trying to run a name, and I don't think it will happen again, because the government are going to do their job now. They know it's happened, so they're never going to let that happen again. And I think if you play it tomorrow, everything will be fine. And in terms of punishment, it should be punishment. I think it should be punishment, because there's no place for racism in the world. We need to learn our lesson, and after that, I think everything's going to be okay. I hope everything's going to be okay.
Fantastic. Dimitar, really appreciate you coming on this morning.
Cheers,
I know you've got training this morning, so I hope that goes well, and good luck for the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Dimitar Mitov there, Cambridge United goalkeeper, Bulgarian goalkeeper, giving us his thoughts on Monday night.
I think it's just something worth remembering that, actually, which is that, and it was, I know the main focus of that was essentially on what happened on Monday night, but just how special it is for a guy who's didn't have a goalkeeper coach for the first X amount of years in his career to come and get into a League Two team at Cambridge United. It's a good club. I mean, that's an incredible amount of hard work and personal dedication has gone into that.
I mean, it's someone that I've kept an eye on for a period of time, because you're right. We take it for granted sometimes when you have the environment that we have here, and you look around. It's an interesting topic, and I mean, I know we've got the news shortly, so it's not something we can get into too deeply, but when you do take a step back and you look at the types of players that get produced in certain areas of the world, so obviously Brazil and South America has been known for years to produce certain types of players with real flair, and and then you look at Spain and Portugal again similarly, and then England, like the type of players that England have produced over the years. Now there's no right or wrong, but you see certain types of players come from certain environments. Goalkeeping's the same. You actually look at the moment, it's no surprise that Ederson and Alisson have both come from a similar region. There's certain type of goalkeeper that we're producing in England, the types of goalkeepers that Germany and Spain produce, and Italy. And you've got slight differences with all of them. But Bulgaria, for a long period of time, it's been difficult. He touched on it there. When I spoke to him privately yesterday, he said that they used to do a lot of training on concrete, because they didn't have the pitches to do it on. So he's having to do goalkeeper training on concrete. So to actually then be able to make it to the level he has is extraordinary. You do wonder then, had he have been in a Chelsea environment as a kid or somewhere else. But that's the point, right? I mean, with this, as much as we're talking about the Bulgarian national team, the racism, everything else, from a football perspective, you do wonder how they're ever going to get anywhere near it again, whether it can happen again without a huge influx of money.
Yeah, and this is it, actually, isn't it? And I think the idea that FIFA or UEFA or whatever would clamp down in a financial sense on them, it would be ruinous. In fact, they almost, you would imagine, wouldn't really have a football setup anymore. And so, but that should be the motivation that they need to stamp out racism in that country and on the terraces.
Absolutely, yeah. Delighted to have him on. That was Dimitar Mitov, Cambridge United Bulgarian goalkeeper. Stay with us, 3 minutes to 9.
Love sport.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. You have the pleasure of us, and we have the pleasure of you for another hour. We're going to be speaking to John Rentoul, aren't we,
Yes.
after the news?
Chief political correspondent at The Independent. He used to be an advisor to Tony Blair, and the reason why is that he knows a thing or two about what makes a good Prime Minister and what makes a good politician.
And who are we putting forward?
Gareth Southgate.
There you go. What do you guys think? Gareth Southgate for Prime Minister? 0208 70 20 558. After that, we've got a bit of an exclusive. Carl Fletcher, the new Leyton Orient boss, former Plymouth coach, ex-Wales midfielder, has agreed a contract until the end of the 2021 season with Leyton Orient. We're also speaking to Tom Allnut, Spanish football correspondent for AFP. As always, get in touch on the socials at Love Sport Radio, on WhatsApp 0208 70 20 558. We're on YouTube as well. Love Sport, 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9. Boris Johnson's been given a big problem on the day he was hoping to present a new Brexit deal at an EU summit in Brussels. The DUP says it can't support his latest proposal, saying it has concerns about customs and VAT. Labour MP Stephen Kinnock says his party may struggle to back it too.
If it's correct that the government's strategy is all about divergence and the political declaration on the future relationship is not going to have those guarantees and safeguards that we're looking for, then I think it becomes more difficult for Labour MPs to support it.
Angry commuters have dragged an Extinction Rebellion protester from the top of a tube train in East London. The city's mayor, Sadiq Khan's, described the demonstrators' actions as extremely dangerous and counterproductive. Veteran Labour MP Dame Louise Ellman has been heavily critical of Jeremy Corbyn after quitting the party. She says the leader is not fit to be Prime Minister and that under his leadership anti-Semitism has become mainstream. It's understood around 12,000 Asda workers are currently facing the sack for refusing to sign controversial new contracts. Yesterday, hundreds marched through Leeds to hand in a petition at these supermarkets' headquarters. The Duke of Cambridge has called for politicians to do more to tackle climate change after seeing for himself a melting glacier in northern Pakistan. Prince William and Kate, who are on a tour of the country, also met people already affected by flooding, which has been linked to global warming. He says time is running out.
We've seen around the world now, the young are getting very engaged in what's going on. And I think it's fantastic that we can all come together and really have a very good conversation about what we need to do, and that action needs to happen very soon.
And Netflix says a record number of people have watched the third season of Stranger Things. 64 million households tuned into the sci-fi drama in the 4 weeks after its release in July. The streaming giant says that's more than any other season of the show, which stars British actress Millie Bobby Brown. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
This is Love Sport. The B&Q 3 for 2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3 for 2 on all paint, such as Dulux, Valspar and Farrow & Ball. For this show-stopping deal, hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3 for 2 it. Every third item per single transaction in descending price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another hour or so. Let's touch on the main headlines this morning. Lots going on as ever. George Ford dropped by Eddie Jones for England's World Cup quarter-final. There's a Premier League game to be played at 8 p.m. on Boxing Day. Leicester taking on Liverpool. Pogba and De Gea are out of the Liverpool game on Sunday, adding to Ollie's woes. UK Athletics to hold independent inquiry into how and why Mo Farah was backed to stay with Salazar after the review. And boxer Patrick Day tragically dies aged 27 days after suffering brain injuries in a defeat to Charles Cornwell. There's lots we're going to be going through this hour. We've got a bit of an exclusive. We will be speaking to Carl Fletcher, who is the new Leyton Orient boss. That was announced and confirmed yesterday. Of course, the former Plymouth coach, ex-Wales midfielder. He signed a contract until the end of the 2021 season. We'll also be speaking shortly to John Rentoul, chief political commentator for The Independent. Are we going to get a Brexit deal? Should Gareth Southgate be Prime Minister? We're going to be posing these questions to John very, very shortly. We'll be speaking to Tom Allnut as well, Spanish football correspondent for AFP. I am, of course, joined by Mr. Patrick Christys.
Hello, Rich.
Hello indeed. We're going to be speaking to John very shortly. In fact, John is on the line now.
Fantastic. John, cheers for coming on. It's a little bit of an unusual one, this. I normally text John about, oh, God, can you just give us the latest on Brexit? Can you just talk to me about the Irish backstop, And instead, I've asked him to do something a little bit different today. I want to put the case forward, John, for Gareth Southgate, the England football manager, to become our new Prime Minister. I've looked at the way that he handled the whole racism issue in Bulgaria. He's handled it with dignity, with diplomacy. He can rally the troops. He's good at getting success on the international stage, which we need now more than ever after Brexit. And John, what do you reckon?
Doesn't he wear a waistcoat or something?
He does.
That's the full extent of my footballing knowledge there.
But what I want to know is what characteristics, right, in your opinion, what characteristics would make a great Prime Minister?
Well, this is what I always say, is that the underestimated quantity is temperament. I mean, one of the reasons I think Tony Blair was a good Prime Minister was he had the temperament for it. He didn't lose his temper. He was brilliant at reading people and understanding what they wanted and telling them what they wanted to hear without necessarily committing himself too much. And those are the sort of skills that I'm not familiar with all of Gareth Southgate's work, but I think he does seem to have some of those sort of people management skills that I think are absolutely essential in a Prime Minister. Exactly.
And in terms as well of, it's important surely for how a Prime Minister is perceived on the world stage. So again, that's something that Tony Blair did rather well. It's something that potentially Theresa May lacked in terms of a perceived weakness. But with Gareth,
indeed, although she was tall,
she
looked the part.
So this is the thing. How important is it? Because Gareth Southgate is quite a dashing chap. How important are a Prime Minister's looks, do you think?
Oh, I think they are important. I mean, I think you want people to think, yes, that's someone I'm happy to have representing me on the world stage. I mean, I do think, David Cameron, for all his sort of smoothie chops appearance, did look the part. I mean, he was suave. He could talk his way out of any tight corner, but he just looked like a prime minister. And I think Boris Johnson doesn't really, but I mean he has some other compensating qualities, although they're not working at the moment.
And just lastly, John, because I know you're in a rush, I appreciate making the time for us. I get the impression...
Well, Brexit's gone up the spout, Patrick.
Oh,
so,
it has.
I've got to write about it.
It has, and I don't blame you either. But just lastly, how important is it for a Prime Minister, if they're going to have real success in the polls, to try to occupy that centre ground? Something that I think that Gareth Southgate does. He's no nonsense. He's probably, I'd say, centre-left, but he's no nonsense at the same time. Is that something that you think we kind of almost need at the polls?
That is a leading question to ask a Blairite. Of course, you need to lead from the centre ground. I mean, that seems to me the obvious thing that a Prime Minister has to do. Has to be able to. I mean, obviously they need a party base, but they need to be able to appeal to independent-minded voters in the centre. But the other point to make about Southgate, of course, is that you don't have to be an MP to be Prime Minister. I mean, we have a wonderfully flexible constitution. You don't even have to be a member of Parliament at all. I mean, strictly speaking, there's nothing written down that says you even have to be in the House of Lords, although they always have been in one house or the other. But I mean, briefly, Alec Douglas Hume, when he resigned his peerage, wasn't a member of either house while he was Prime Minister at the start in 1963. So there's definitely a slot for Gareth Southgate whenever he wants it.
Excellent. John, sorry, just very, very, very quickly, you said Brexit's gone up the spout. Just, briefly, what is going on?
Well, it's just that the DUP said no. And obviously, that is the DUP's job historically. But we weren't expecting them to carry on saying no this morning. I thought they were going to say, I thought the no was going to switch to a yes. But they put out a statement this morning saying they don't agree with the proposals as they stand, which means we really are running out of time because this special session of Parliament on Saturday was supposed to be voting on something that's agreed today or tomorrow by European leaders. But if there's nothing for them to vote on, we may not see Parliament sitting on Saturday after all.
OK, John, thank you very much for your time. I will let you go and write about the unmitigated disaster that is this latest stage of Brexit. John Rentoul, the chief political commentator at The Independent. Cheers for coming on and giving us the time. Has he swayed you as to why maybe Gareth Southgate could become PM?
I mean, I was convinced anyway. It was very, very simple. I mean, I know you've put such a good case forward. Why wouldn't we?
I think this is it. We need I think, at times, there's a time that calls for a Boris Johnson-esque figure. Dare I even say it, a Trump-esque figure, where you want someone who's bullish, who gets things through, who can kind of, do all that. But Gareth Southgate, you look at him and you go, well, he's a man of integrity. He's a man of honour. He's a man of great diplomacy. You never quite know what he's really thinking, and that's important, I think. So I am bang in favour of Gareth Southgate for the man who can fix broken Britain.
Indeed. There you go. What do you guys think? 0208 70 20 558. Want to talk a little bit about Manchester United. Of course, they have got their injury woes this weekend. The likes of Pogba, De Gea are out. Several other players are out as well. They're not having a particularly good time of it anyway. And they're coming up against a team with a 100% record.
Yes, they are. United take on Liverpool this weekend, and they will be without two of their best players in the shape of Paul Pogba and David De Gea. Signs aren't looking good, and you look at the way that Liverpool play, with real quality first and foremost, but with pace and with real gumption. And you can't help but feel as though, Ashley Young at wing-back, Juan Mata in midfield, Nemanja Matic, potentially Scott McTominay, you think they're going to get overrun, surely.
Do you know what? And I don't know if it's because, look, we look back with rose-tinted glasses as to teams from years gone by. And I think both you and I can name the United team from 10, 15 years ago because there were so many iconic names within that team. And I guess that's the point. You look at this current lineup, and if it is to be the lineup that we think it will be at the weekend, it doesn't feel like a Manchester United lineup anymore. And this is, for all the players that they've brought in obviously 3 players this summer. You feel they're at least another, 18 months before they can be anywhere near it again. You look at Liverpool, Man City, because it's so much bigger and so much deeper than just the players that they've got. Because, of course, City and Liverpool have world-class players, but you can tell the environment, the way in which they play, the communication, the dynamic in both of these teams is so much different to United.
I think that's been a real shame, looking at it obviously from a United perspective, which is that when that team sheet was announced on the first day of the season against Chelsea, and clearly that was a good result. It may well prove to be Manchester United's best result of the season, actually, that by the end of the year. I thought it looked as though they had a style. It looked as though they had a team there that didn't have a huge amount of star names on the pitch necessarily, but they had a way of playing and a cohesiveness about them. And then, to be honest with you, the wheels have come off, haven't they? It looks like they've never really met, and potentially it is time for a Brian Robson approach to things, Rich. So in 1989 and 1990, United had 8 league points. They went on to finish, by this stage of the season, they went on to finish 13th. They averaged just 1 point a game. Now, United currently have 9 league points. Their final position, of course, we have to wait and see where that is. They average 1.13 points a game. And what Brian Robson did at this exact stage of that particularly woeful Manchester United season was to take everyone to the pub and thrash it out and say, look, you're not leaving until we've sorted it. Is it time, Rich, that the Manchester United players just went on a massive booze up?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think so. I think that, do you know what, this is a bit of an old school technique, and I think a lot of old school players will listen and they'll agree with this. It's one of the best ways in which you can break down barriers, sort out issues, is actually, you can imagine, right? You go into a changing room these days, more so than back then. You go into a changing room these days, no one talks. You walk into a changing room, you've got 20 lads all on their phone. That's exactly what it is now. So there won't be a great deal of communication within the squad anyway. So by actually going on a night out with each other, it might be the time that you finally have a conversation face to face and you talk to people. And of course, naturally, alcohol breaks down certain barriers for some people. Now, I know not all of these players will drink, of course, but even just being in that environment where they're forced to have conversations with each other and actually start to get to know each other a bit different, build sort of bonds between them, which you can see that on the field they don't necessarily have that, because these aren't bad players. As much as we list the names who are likely to play at the weekend and they're not the world-class names of years gone by, they're not bad players, of course. You know, they're still very, very good players. Some of them have been world-class players at times, maybe not performing to that level at the moment. You just wonder, maybe something like that, some way in which you can bring the squad together, maybe that's exactly what they need.
Maybe. Well, they need something, don't they? And I think a massive booze up is certainly one way to go about it. Just make sure that they get the taxis home.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes, as we have learned very recently. Well, look, we're going to be speaking to Carl Fletcher, the new Leyton Orient boss, very, very shortly. Stay with us.
I know my IQ is fantastic. I took a test and the results came back negative.
Love Sport. Follow @LoveSportRadio on Twitter for all the latest news, views, competitions, and the best bits from your favourite station. Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
Right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had to look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Now, we got a very special guest on the line because, of course, big news yesterday. Leyton Orient have appointed a new manager, and it is Carl Fletcher, of course, previously manager of Plymouth, played for Bournemouth, West Ham, Crystal Palace. Delighted to say we have him on the line. Morning, Carl.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good. First and foremost, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. So you've obviously signed, read the contract, you signed a contract to the end of the 2021 season. I know you've been in talks over the last few days, I believe. You're obviously doing a great job at Bournemouth. What made you decide to make the switch?
I think it was one of them things, really, Rich. It's just I wasn't, actively looking. I think it's when the opportunity come up to obviously put my name forward and speak to Leyton Orient, it just ticked a lot of boxes. I think the club, the people at the club, the way they conduct themselves, how they have that good family feel, and I think sometimes when you're looking to go into a tough position as a manager, I think the club and the people at the club is almost more importantly than just getting the job itself. So that was a massive factor with me going forward, and luckily from my point of view, I was able to get the job.
Yeah, well, and obviously you were manager of Plymouth before. You spent several years now with Bournemouth. Do you feel that you're a different manager now from the one that managed Plymouth?
Yeah, massively. So I mean, at Plymouth, it's tough circumstances. Obviously, there was a lot with the administration and the money issues that we had. But just a classic older player. I'm sure you're the same, Rich. Felt we kind of knew it all back in the day, and the opportunity fell in my lap, and I took it. But looking back, and obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing. I was very inexperienced, didn't have what I needed to, and kind of after that, kind of in certain terms, kind of went back to school really, and learnt my trade and learnt the skills that you need, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that at Bournemouth with the 18s and the 23s, and be in a great environment there with such good people in the staff, the coaching staff and the academy and stuff to give me that time to try things, make mistakes, learn different things, and like I said, all that experiences have brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, well, I want to touch on that because you mentioned 18s, 23s, and of course, I guess working quite closely with Eddie Howe, who gets a lot of plaudits. Of course, I'm guessing for a lot of Leyton Orient fans, this will be quite exciting, the idea that they've got someone who's worked alongside him, seen how he operates, and of course, he's having fantastic success at Bournemouth. Have you taken a lot from how he operates and the way in which Bournemouth has been structured?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Obviously, you can't help but not. Obviously, working there for such a long period of time. So, yeah, definitely. I think, as anything, any manager that you work under, you always, take good bits and bad bits, and you try and, mould it into your own ways. But I think, a lot of it's not always just, on the training pitch. It's the whole, how, the feel of the club and the things you need to do to keep, the community together. It's really important these days. I feel that the club and the community are together as one, and all pushing in the right direction. I think, luckily enough, we've got some really good fans at Leyton Orient that are really behind the team and really want the club to do well, which is great. I think it's, you always take little bits and bobs and try and mould it into your own style. I think the good thing as well with the loans, I was lucky enough to get out and see lots of football within the last, 7-8 months, lots of different levels. So that was constantly working my brain, which was really good. And like I said, I've been very lucky to get them experiences to get me to where I am today.
Fantastic. And of course, you'll be joining with some good backroom staff as well. So the likes of Joby McAnuff, Danny Webb, and of course Embleton as well. Have you had a chance to meet them and discuss how you want to see things moving forward?
I had a brief chat with Ross over the weekend, and then we're meeting all today. So looking forward to it. Like I said, some good guys. I played with Joby at Crystal Palace, so I know him, and like I said, everyone I've spoke to who knows them better than I do always says what good people. But again, like I said earlier on, it just, good people, good characters around the club, it's kind of what you want, positive feel. So like I said, I'm very lucky to go and meet them today, and hopefully we get things moving forward.
Fantastic. And lastly, on a good run, obviously 7 points from the last 3 games, 17th in the league, but it's obviously a very, very tight league. It always is League Two. What are the ambitions for this season?
Look, I think we just take it, pretty much the old adage, the old boring one, but we just take each game as it comes. I think whenever a new manager goes in, there's always a period of assessment, and just looking and just seeing how things work, players work, people around, staff work, and things like that. So, like I said, it's the team, we've got some really good players, which we're, I'm very fortunate to have. So, I think it's just assess it and see how we go, and just, try and do as best we can in each game. I'm from my point of view, I'm a fan sometimes, and I want to see games played, high tempo, people working hard, the love for the game, all that kind of thing. So So hopefully we can get some of that into the team going forward. But like I said, just looking forward to getting there and meeting everyone and going forward.
Fantastic. Well, look, good luck for the weekend. Carl, congratulations.
No, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Great stuff. Carl Fletcher there, the new Leyton Orient manager. It was announced yesterday he has taken over, signed a contract to the end of the 2021 season. Of course, we do wish him luck. Being one of our London clubs, of course, no doubt we'll be touching on Leyton Orient very regularly in the coming weeks.
Yes, absolutely. Seems like a good appointment, and we wish him all the best.
Indeed. Well, look, I want to talk a little bit, and this isn't just me crowbarring goalkeeping into the conversation, which I like to do. We know I like to do that. But, of course, it is 10 years to the day since the beach ball incident.
Oh, yes. So this was, is it Darren Bent against Pepe Reina?
That's right.
He fired it into a beach ball, which was, I thought, quite a shrewd move.
It's... But
I've been looking at this for a while now, and people called me crazy. People said, you're an idiot. People said, oh, just shut up. And I was saying, we need to introduce more mayhem into football. So I proposed a multi-ball system for extra time.
Yeah.
Just to definitively get a result. Now, the beach ball thing could be a good one with that. I also like the idea of greasing up a single strip of the pitch without telling any of the players exactly which bit it has been. Clever. I like the idea of just more distractions going on. So when penalties are taken, because it's easier now than it's ever been for strikers to score penalties.
Yeah.
Okay, because keepers aren't allowed off the line, like the pace at which they hit the ball, etc., etc. So I want to see more overt distractions. So maybe not just the goalkeeper, but like you get on PlayStation games, you know, one of the where like another kind of almost cardboard goalkeeper moves side to side, side to side, side to side, like this, and things like that.
What about like a power play where you could maybe bring on an extra couple of players for a 5-minute spell during the game?
Yeah, I'd like that again.
Yeah.
I'd like that again. I'm all about that kind of stuff.
How about every game you allow a fan? You pick a fan like a lottery. They're then in the matchday squad and they're guaranteed 5 minutes.
I'd like watching someone called like Kai try to squeeze his way into a Manchester United shirt. It looks like he'd been sewn into it as you get the belly underhang there, you know.
Yeah. Kind of feel like we've gone off topic here.
Have we?
Ever so slightly, yeah.
Right.
I do want to touch on some of the blunders. Those who watched Sky Sports News this morning, they've touched on a few, and there's some classic ones out there. The Tim Flowers one, Stan Collymore from distance, the bobble over his
Massimo Taibbi.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Did you see his interview afterwards? It was almost as embarrassing as the goal itself. He went, how are you feeling? Now, bless him, his English obviously wasn't great. Yeah. How are you feeling? He went, I am sick as bird. Sick as a parrot? Yeah, sick as parrot. Yeah, sick as parrot.
There's another classic. Actually, one that I've forgotten. One that I was on the bench for. So Ben Foster, when he was beaten by Paul Robinson.
What was the mood like in the change room after that happened?
Well, hilarious in that I'm so nervous. Like, my heart sank. Horrible moment. Paul Robinson strikes at 80 yards, bounces over Ben's head, goes in the goal. My heart sinks. It's horrible when you see that for a keeper. So I've come in the change room. I've sat down, waiting for Ben to come in because, of course, the subs always get in earlier than the players that are playing. And I'm thinking, what do you say to someone who's just conceded from the other goalkeeper in that fashion at White Hart Lane? Literally, no one celebrated. They laughed. The ball went in. They laughed. They didn't celebrate. So I'm thinking he's going to be in all sorts. He comes in, genuinely crying with laughter. I was like, you all right? He's like, oh, mate, did you see that out there? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I think everyone saw it. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, everyone saw it, mate. We've seen it on repeat on Match of the Day. We're going to be watching. I've got it on my phone, actually. I've clipped it. But I mean, did you ever have any moments of real bad luck?
Bad luck. I mean, I had the classic one where you dive, hits the post, hits you, goes in.
That's annoying.
It's annoying because you kind of feel like probably if I hadn't dived, it wouldn't have gone in.
Well, yeah, but you can't not dive.
You can't not dive. Yeah, do you know what? No, just genuine errors, really.
Right.
Rather than bad luck, just really bad judgment, more so.
Okay, flying off your line.
Yeah. Rush of blood. Love that one. Little Hugo Lloris from time to time. To touch on a couple of the other ones that are being shown as well. There's actually one I hadn't seen, Peter Schmeichel, where he goes to throw the ball out and he throws it at the referee.
Yes.
And the ball just stops.
I had one at school once where, like, I was obviously different level, where I did that. So I had a goal kick and I mishit it, but it would have been fine. But I just thundered it into the back of the referee's head and just bounced straight back into our box. The striker just walked up and tapped it in. It was like, right then, lads, we go again. We go again.
I had one at school. It's kind of goalkeeping related. In fact, I was in goal, and it was the last minute of the last game of the season. We're going to win the league. We were like 1-0 up, and we just had to hold on for one more minute. Ball gets crossed in the box. Can I come? Probably not. So I stay on my line. One of our defenders jumps up, catches the ball.
What?
Catches the ball in the last minute of the last game. for us to win the league, catches the ball. And everyone's like, Matt, what are you doing? Gave the penalty. They score the penalty. We end up coming second. The other team win the league.
No.
So
Did you ever get to the bottom of
that
Matt's
kid-
match-fixing scandal?
He was so upset afterwards, and I don't know what had happened. It was just one of the... I don't know, he was so upset, like floods of tears, so apologetic. It was like, what was going through your
Just out
mind?
of interest, Matt. Sit down, Matt.
Sit down, Matt.
Yeah, we need to have a little chat here.
Matt Warner, if you're listening, I still haven't forgotten it with 30 years on.
Or forgiven it. by
Or
the sounds
forgiven
of
it by
things.
the sounds of things.
That would have been your only silverware
know.
other than the Ibiza Cup.
I know.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
This show's taken a downturn.
Rich is shedding a tear.
27 minutes past 9.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee Patrick. Christys here with you for another half an hour or so. And of course, the brilliant Martin Bell is up after us. We're going to talk a little bit of rugby because, of course, England are taking on Australia on Saturday. And there's lots of big news going on in the rugby. Billy Vunipola being a big talking point. But, of course, George Ford is a big talking point, isn't he, Patrick?
Guy Watts is in the studio with us now, our esteemed producer, Guy.
I am indeed. Good morning. Yeah, George Ford is a big story. He's been dropped. The fly half has been dropped. The guy who's started all three of the games England have played so far, been man of the match in at least one, if not two of those games. He's been dropped. What do we make of this, guys?
Well, has he gone in for a bit of repair work, or is it just like what, maintenance, VAT, something like that?
Yeah, MOT, possibly.
VAT.
MOT.
Yeah, George Ford's had some really big VAT issues, actually. That'll all come out in the Panama Papers.
Maybe Rich has got something on this.
No, I kind of feel like I used up my Ford-related jokes. I've Googled every Ford car.
You don't think he's been caught out when he shouldn't have been with an escort or something?
Oh, yes! Oh, well done. We can all go home now.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks very much. Thank you. Cheers. Good to see you.
That is banter from another galaxy. That is
Wow.
So the rugby.
The rugby, yeah. George Ford dropped. Owen Farrell starts at 10. That means that we see a return to the centre pairing of Manu Tuilagi at 12, Henry Slade at 13. Henry Slade hasn't started a game since the Premiership semi-final, I believe it was, back in May, which is quite a long time ago now, about 5 months. He has, of course, played some small part in England's campaign so far, but that France game being called off was, I think, a blow in a couple of ways. I think it prevented us getting a bit of momentum and confidence from beating what would have been the strongest side we'd have played in the group stage. It also deprived us of a crucial opportunity to give people like Henry Slade a bit more game time, but it did work particularly well against Ireland in the Six Nations. We thrashed them out in Dublin. It worked really well against France as well in the Six Nations, that Farrell, Tuilagi, Slade combination, and I think George Ford's been really hard done by. But what I would say is, and Owen Farrell's been speaking about this morning, he is stressing that there's a big role for him to play off the bench. You know, that he could quite easily play as much, I think, as half an hour or maybe even 40 minutes of the game. A few years ago when we were in Australia, he did something similar. Eddie Jones, he started George Ford on the bench. He was on within half an hour of that game starting. So Probably won't be so drastic this time, but there are question marks, of course, always have been about George Ford's defence. He's not the biggest player, of course. He's so good with front football, a little bit less good when you have him to defend. Australia have a particularly dangerous weapon in Samu Karevi, the inside centre, going to come up against Manu Tuilagi. But had George Ford been on the pitch, there would have been a worry that Karevi would have been targeted against George Ford, and that's possibly why Eddie Jones has gone with the selection he's gone with. I would have gone with a different one personally, but I know an awful lot less about rugby than Eddie Jones. But I've liked what I've seen from George Ford. Maybe, though, this is just going to give him that extra incentive to, when he does come on the pitch, to make an impact and have a big say in this game still.
Do you think that the centre is where this could be won and lost? Because you've got Tuilagi, as you said there, he scored the most tries by centre in 2019 with 5. But then, of course, you've got as well the fact that Karevi is basically better at everything else. In fact, he's a world leader at everything else. Most carries, 50, most metres, and most clean breaks as well. So, actually, are we going to find it difficult to shut him up?
I think we are, to be honest. I think he's been Australia's single most dangerous player in the tournament so far. Those stats that you're using there, that's in comparison to his fellow players in the Rugby Championship. So that's the Kiwis, that's the RGs, and that's the Safas as well. So 3 top teams, all with some really, really good players in that sort of position. Karevi is about as good as they get in that position at the moment, and he's a real worry for us. They've got a dangerous back 3 as well, Australia, but I do think that we can have the upper hand in the forwards. Another interesting selection, Courtney Laws plays instead of George Cruz in the second row, which would suggest to me that we're going for that extra bit of sort of mobility and dynamism in the loose rather than pure expertise at the line out, which is what Cruz brings. And don't forget the Vunipola brothers, both of them fit to start for the first time in this tournament, starting together, exciting times, and I think that could be a key factor in us winning this game.
The Vunipola house is the wrong house to break into, isn't it?
It is, it is. It must have been an expensive house to feed for the parents. Must have not. Remember, their father was a Tongan rugby player himself, so it must have been big portions every night. It's all about eating them out of house and home. Imagine keeping Billy and Mako fed.
Well, why do they announce? Because it's such a tactical game, and there are so many different areas at which you can exploit and try to exploit. Why do we announce the teams so early?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's such a contrast to football where some managers don't even tell the players until an hour before. It doesn't become public, does it, until an hour before, sometimes a little bit more. Rob Green didn't know until an hour before that fateful game against the USA in 2010 that he was actually going to start. Just incredible that would be the case in a World Cup match, as you would say, Rich, as a former goalkeeper. Completely ridiculous. Rugby, completely different. 2 days in advance is the complete norm. I think it's for 2 reasons. I think it's because training really tapers after that. They do what's known as a captain's run on the day before, and I think very little on the day itself. So there's no need, if you like, to keep the players guessing because the training is done. And it's just the culture,
does it not benefit your opposition, though?
But you both do it.
Okay.
I mean, yes, it sort of does, but it also benefits the players to have that certainty. It benefits the media to stop speculating and all that kind of thing until the very last minute. It's out there, it's done. You can't quibble with it, you can't change it. The coach has had his say. What
was the weirdest team building exercise you ever did?
We did a few with Eddie Boothroyd. We did walking on hot coals. We did breaking through boards. What else did we do? Oh, we did loads.
Did you ever go to a Hedgehog Cafe somewhere outside the Tokyo area?
No.
Nope.
Who's done that?
Joe Marler.
Joe Marler.
Yeah.
He is an odd chap, Joe Marler.
Is he?
He's eccentric, yeah.
I like that,
you've seen his haircut, haven't you?
Yeah, but I just thought I was just like some kind of like
just born
barbarian.
like that, woke up like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he is a loose chap. He's the fines chief in the England. If you do something wrong, Joe Marler decides your punishment, which is not a fate that I would particularly want. He is a crazy, crazy guy, yeah. Talking team building exercises, it's not one I've been part of. The weirdest one I've ever seen has got to be the one going on at Manchester United at the moment, where they're trying to build a team by signing terrible players in the wrong positions, not signing enough of them, then letting them all get injured and promoting more terrible players from the youth system, the reserve team. It's a really interesting one. I'll be interested to see how it goes for Ollie. I don't know if it'll overtake the one where you have to stop an egg from cracking just by using a load of pencils and a rubber band, or the one that you talked about, like walking on hot coals. But I think it could catch on.
It could do, indeed.
Mauricio Pochettino letting all his players' contracts run down. That's an interesting one too. And then not selecting half the team. Some real innovative strategies.
You've got to think outside the box.
You do.
This is the point.
You've got to stay ahead.
Yeah, you do. Great stuff, Guy. In fact, I think we've got to give Guy credit for the best Ford joke of the morning.
Yeah, no, that was sensational, mate. Yeah.
Comfortably. Right, we're back in about 30 seconds or so time. We're going to be speaking to Tom Allnutt, Spanish football correspondent for AFP.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Love sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another 25 minutes or so. And then, of course, Martin Bell is up after us. Right, we're going to talk a bit of Spanish football now. Delighted to say we've got Tom Warner, Spanish football correspondent for AFP, on the line. Morning, Tom.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well. A couple of interesting things to talk about. I know there's all sorts going on in Catalonia. I want to touch on that in a minute. But first and foremost, Spain qualify for Euro 2020.
Yeah, I mean, they're through with 2 games to spare, so definitely a feeling of relief here, really. I mean, it was a fairly smooth campaign, certainly on the pitch. I mean, obviously, Luis Enrique resigning in June and Robert Moreno having to take over certainly kind of upset the apple cart a little bit at that time. But, I mean, in terms of the group, there was never really any doubt Spain had been ahead for quite a long time. It's just, in a way, the performances recently have been slightly disappointing. And although they've won the group fairly comfortably, it looks like there's still a few doubts as to how they're going to perform next summer.
Yeah, we just want to touch on that because, of course, after the World Cup, have things been largely positive since then in terms of the national team?
I mean, I don't know about positive. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to say in qualifying. I mean, their group, they've finished above Sweden, Romania, and Norway. I mean, it's not a great litmus test really for how they can do it at a major tournament. And essentially, Spain is still very much in a process of renewal. In every single game, it seems like they play a new starting lineup. They're sort of trying lots and lots of different players, lots of different combinations, and there's still definitely a feel here that they haven't really settled on a squad or a group that they think that they can really rely on next summer. So. There's still a lot of work to do, I think, and certainly in key positions, even goalkeeper. It's still unclear as to whether or not De Gea or Kepa is going to be the number one. Central defence, with the retirement of Piqué, there's still a lot of up in the air. They've been trying various different partners for Sergio Ramos and up front as well. I mean, they handed Gerard Moreno his debut the other day, and it's still very much up for grabs, that position as well. So these aren't sort of peripheral positions. These are really key spots. So. It's still very much for Robert Moreno to find a kind of a combination that he thinks can do the job next summer. It seems like it's still quite up in the air, really.
And I believe that the Clásico might be moved because of what's going on in Catalonia at the minute. I think just to fill our listeners in, really, which is that clearly Catalonia is a region which, in a rather kind of ad hoc referendum a while ago, decided it wanted independence. That was clearly denied by the Spanish government. Since then, a lot of pro-independence leaders have been jailed for between 9 and 13 years by Spain's Supreme Court. That happened on Monday. There's massive protests going on. It's actually quite violent. There's a lot of pictures going about various things on fire, basically. What is going to go on with the Clásico, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, the political situation obviously very complicated. But to stick to kind of the football side of it, really, La Liga yesterday applied to the federation here, who are in charge of the fixtures. For the match to be moved, because they said that there are exceptional circumstances, which is just one of the reasons that the calendar can be changed, either the date or the venue, and they think that the circumstances at the moment in Catalonia mean that the match should be moved from Camp Nou to the Bernabeu next weekend. Now, basically, it's up to the federation now as to whether or not they approve that request. The clubs can also have a say and put across their view, which they haven't yet done publicly, but certainly behind the scenes, it seems like neither team are particularly keen on it, particularly Barcelona, for understandable reasons, because it sends out certainly a very controversial message, which is essentially that Barcelona can't handle the safety of the match, that it's too unsafe in Catalonia at the moment, and obviously there's a very political message to be sent to move that match to Madrid. We're not talking about any other fixtures. It's the Clásico, it's Barcelona and the capital and Madrid, the capital of Spain, where the government is based. So to move the match away from Camp Nou to the Bernabeu certainly sends out a very controversial and for some a provocative message. I mean, another option would be to postpone the game, and that might end up being the most likely sort of compromise option, to postpone the match. They're talking about possibly a date in December when there's a Copa del Rey week, and that might be the kind of the option that is least worst of all of them.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, because if they were to move it, wouldn't that be a win for the protesters?
It would be. In some ways, yes. I guess it would be a win for the protesters, but also it would in some senses, it would move the authority, the responsibility for the match to Madrid, and that also sent. I mean, it's a slight kind of echo of the when they moved the Copa Libertadores final to Madrid in December, if you remember, from Argentina, because of the violence that happened in Argentina, and certainly that sort of sent out a message that Argentina couldn't handle their own affairs, really. And in a way, this is something slightly similar, perhaps, that if it moves to Madrid, then the idea is that this match has been taken out of Barcelona's hands. And of course, we know that this isn't perhaps like in England, where football clubs tend to stay out of politics, tend to stay out of the issues in the news. Barcelona are seen very much as a sort of central symbol of Catalonian independence. They obviously put out a statement on Monday as well, kind of condemning the ruling and saying that prison isn't the answer. And we often see in the Camp Nou, protests and banners, and it's a very kind of politically alive arena. So to move it to Madrid, I think would be quite a controversial decision, and certainly not one that would probably improve the crisis, I don't think.
No, just to touch on the league table as it stands at the moment, obviously it's a familiar top three: Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid. I assume they're the three outstanding teams. The league's sort of settling down a bit now. Given the early signs, does it look like it will be a 3-horse race, or do you think Real Madrid, Barcelona will be a 2-horse race out of those two?
I mean, at the moment, none of those three, although those three kind of sit in the top three positions, none of them have been particularly convincing. And even sort of a week or two ago, you looked at the table and it looked extremely jumbled up, and suddenly now it looks extremely familiar and predictable again. But I mean, all three of them seem to have got very considerable weaknesses at the moment. I mean, just to go through it quickly, I mean, Atletico still got the problems of scoring goals. Even though they've signed João Felix, and all the positivity from the summer was that this could be a team that suddenly can attack again and be more exciting to watch. Actually, we've seen a few goalless draws. They've struggled to break teams down, so that's their problem still. Barcelona have got various issues, particularly not least fitting in their players, really, what with Griezmann now on the bench, and it'd be interesting to see how much he plays in the coming weeks. And also they've got some problems at the back. I mean, Barcelona seem to be opened up by teams in the counter-attack more than any other side. And Real Madrid, to be honest, they've been kind of grinding out results. They've shown glimpses of a team that might be able to settle in and find their rhythm, but particularly in the Champions League, we've seen they're also vulnerable. So I think it's still early, and it could be that one drops out. But the hopes here are basically for a more open title race this season, not because all three teams are particularly good, but perhaps because all three of them have weaknesses. Yeah. So we're hoping that Barcelona aren't going to run away with it for a change.
Great stuff, Tom. As always, appreciate you joining us. Tom Allnutt there, Spanish football correspondent for AFP, giving us the latest on Spanish football. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it, if El Clasico is moved? I mean, it does sound like it really is kicking off over there.
Well, massively, and it goes back a long time. This, so what happened was that the Catalan government, which is run by pro-independence politicians, had an illegal referendum, which was just because you have to get a consent of the main government to obviously have a referendum, which they didn't get. Now, the people in that referendum voted overwhelmingly for independence, and the police's response to that was to essentially drag old ladies out of polling stations by their hair and just fill people in with the batons. Look, the Spanish police don't mess about, right? It's one of those countries where you go to where the Spanish police do not take prisoners lightly, and when they do, they then take loads of prisoners and kick the living daylights out of them, and that's basically what happened. It's been rumbling on for a while, and here we are now. But the reality is, you can't play a football match under these circumstances, because one set of supporters is going to have to go to either Madrid or to Barcelona. Neither of those places are going to be safe. Neither of those environments are going to be safe now,
Yeah, very true. Well, look, we're going to talk about the back pages. Plenty going on in the world of sport. We're doing that after this.
I am a god in Scotland. They've never seen anyone live to 70.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys for another 10 minutes or so. Then, of course, Martin Bell is up. The fantastic Martin Bell coming up straight after us. Now, there's an interesting story on the back page of the Times today, Patrick.
Yes, absolutely. So the Premier League will today reveal that there will be 4 separate kick-off times for live football matches on Boxing Day, and this is the first time this is happening. And it includes, and most controversially, Liverpool away at Leicester, and the kick-off is 8 p.m. So first and foremost, they were about 6 days late in announcing these fixture times, so that meant that fans obviously have been delayed potentially in booking travel arrangements at a very difficult period of the year to get around. But also it is just to an extent, really, I suppose, football fans again being treated like second-class citizens in a way, like an afterthought. Because Liverpool fans are going to have to try and get back at, 10:30 at night, potentially, back from Leicester to Liverpool on Boxing Day. It's not a really good look. However, for TV viewers, it's obviously magnificent because all of these are going to be on Amazon Prime. If you've got Amazon Prime, that is, potentially start a free trial and then maybe bin it off, just between me, you and the gatepost. But yes, that's where we are. But it's a tricky one, this, Rich, because football fans are, again, just becoming more and more marginalised.
Yeah, so it's
match-going football fans.
Match-going. I was going to say, because this is the argument against it will be football fans that are TV fans, and they'll sit at home and they'll have 4 games, I believe, that they can watch on Boxing Day now. So they've got 8 hours worth of football that they can watch on Boxing Day, which I believe that must be the first time that's ever been the case.
Yeah.
So for your armchair fan, this is great news. And the argument will be the majority of people are armchair fans, of course, because there's only a certain number of thousand. What will be the away attendance that would go to the Leicester game? Liverpool fans, what we're talking, 5,000 fans?
Probably.
So when you look at it in that sense, the argument will be, well, look, the majority are getting a good deal here.
I've got a sneaky suspicion that in the next 10 or 15 years, right, we're going to see technology that's so good that it basically like a bit of a VR thing where it can almost put you pitch side. So you could almost pick your seat. You could buy a virtual seat in a stadium, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you can watch that game from the comfort of your own home, but it would feel and look exactly like you were there. And then because these companies know that, that they don't need the fans at the game essentially to make a massive revenue, that might be a way of doing it. But I know that might sound a little bit like, tomorrow's world type thing, but there's every chance that it will go that way, because then you could put a football game on essentially anywhere at any time. And you know that people are going to tune in and watch it. And football clubs at the moment don't make life-changing money, certainly the big ones anyway, out of just gate receipts. It's about sponsorship deals and everything. Would it not bother you as a player, though, if you were playing every single match to no physical fans? So you knew the cameras were there, you knew millions were watching, but there was nobody in the stadium.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I heard an interesting idea recently, and this, apparently the technology is there. So because everyone loves like FIFA and games like this, and of course when you play and there's all these stats about all these players, there is so much in terms of technology, but they're trying to invent something whereby you'd wear a pair of glasses during a game, and when you're looking at a certain player, it could bring up certain stats. So you're almost watching like a computer game. You could be at the game, but similarly, you're getting stats up on every player, quotes on every player. So you're like there. You can see exactly what's going on. And kind of like baseball, where they love all the stats, more so for football. Now, look, do I think that we'll ever get to the point where there'll be no fans in the stadium? No. But, of course, they're trying to maximise the revenue. So that means that technically you've got 50,000 that can actually fit in the stadium. But by having one of these virtual seats, they could sell another 100,000 tickets, which a lot could. I mean, look, Man United, maybe not so much now, but Man United at their peak, Old Trafford, they could have sold out 10 times over. You think of the waiting list, the amount of people.
Across China and all that as well.
Probably 100 times over. And suddenly if you're selling a seat...
Steady.
Well, no, but if you're talking about China, like, of course, the amount of millions of fans that they have over there.
United do claim to have, I think, 1.1 billion fans globally, which is something like 1 in 7 people in the world.
Yeah.
I think that is probably stretching it. Ed Woodward, I think, is just having to add a 0 to that number every time he makes a statement just to compensate for United.
We have 11 billion fans in the
but
world.
don't you think, though, it is true? It must be close to that, because like when you see things like, when you watch like Comic Relief and stuff, and they're right in the middle of nowhere in some kind of African desert.
But they've got their Roy Keane shirt.
At some point, someone will walk past wearing a United shirt.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I think there is something in that. Look, it does have, I think, a bigger global fan base than probably any other club. Whether it's as many as Ed Woodward says, who knows? But it's an interesting one, isn't it? I just think the whole way that the story's unfolded. Yesterday we spoke about this on Drive, how the Premier League waited 6 days to release the official times and days and everything of not just the Boxing Day games, but the whole festive fixture list. And that obviously is the busiest time of year. It's the most expensive time of year for fans anyway, for people anyway, with presents and food, all the rest of it. And then for travel on top of that, it's just so expensive, and the least they can do is give people as much notice as possible. They wait until now, and then it turns out that if you're a Liverpool fan in this case, you've got the run deal of an 8 o'clock kickoff. 8 o'clock on Boxing Day. I mean, even in the past when we've had Saturday night kickoffs, it's been 7:45, I think. So why they need to make it 8, I think it beggars belief. It's the way the game's going. Heard from David Chizzy from Chelsea Supporters Trust earlier. He, is, I think, speaking for many fans when he says they just don't care.
So it's a dad that has to explain to little Johnny why he's getting no presents this year.
Because Johnny come lately.
Johnny come way too lately because Dad's got to get himself to the game. It's going to cost a fortune. So sorry, there's no presents.
Blame the Premier League.
There you go. There you go.
You could just do a Jamie Oliver and blame it on Brexit.
You could indeed. You could indeed.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of news that we haven't mentioned yet, but I think it's an interesting one. A bit of football news from lower down the leagues. Phil Parkinson is going to be named the Sunderland manager later today. Of course, former Bolton manager resigned a month or so ago, I suppose, in light of the crisis there. I think did himself a lot of credit with the way he handled the whole situation. Of course, did take Bolton down, but it was largely out of his hands. He's a well-respected manager, isn't he, Rich? And he'll do a decent job at Sunderland, you'd have thought.
Yeah, did very well at Bradford, of course. And Bolton, for a large period of time, he did well, working with nothing, effectively, and unpaid for however many months. So you're right, he did handle himself well. Interesting fit. I did wonder which way Sunderland would go, and I'd be really interested to know how Sunderland fans react to this, because it's not... I mean, is it the most exciting appointment? Maybe not, but he is someone that's got a lot of managerial experience. He has had success.
He needs to change his name to like Felipe Parquinho or something like that.
Then they'll be dancing on the rooftops. Just like Stevenio Brucinho is now, absolutely loved on Tyneside.
So simple. Millwall still look. I mean, I know Gareth Ainsworth was linked with both, wasn't he? Linked with Sunderland, linked with Millwall. Whether he goes in there or whether he stays at Wycombe Wanderers, it's always this time of the season, the international break. You always get a little merry-go-round.
October, November, it always happens. We've got one more international break coming up. That's always another prime opportunity. Give you a couple of weeks, especially a little bit lower down the pyramid, of course, where you've got more of the players around, but still a couple of weeks to work with them.
Very true. If I remember rightly, you teased us with some winks.
Oh,
no, not actual winks.
Great radio, that, by the way, I must say.
You know
if you were watching on YouTube, you'd have seen me winking at Rich, which I thought was quite amusing. But the story was actually careful. Actually, about Harry Winks, wasn't it? The Spurs and England midfielder. I'll offer you that. We've got a couple more minutes left. Do you want to hear Harry Winks' story or a story about Dan Biggar and his birthday cake?
Oh, that one. Yeah, go on. We'll save Winks for tomorrow.
We'll talk about Harry Winks then. No, Dan Biggar, of course, the Wales fly half, who you would think will start their quarter-final. That team will be named tomorrow morning, and we'll have the reaction to that here for you on Love Sport Breakfast when it is named. He turned 30 the other day, and he was presented at the hotel they were staying at out in Oita, which is the same part of the world, part of the country that England are playing their quarterfinal on Saturday. Presented with a brilliant birthday cake. Apparently, they've gone to all sorts of lengths to do it for his 30th birthday. It was a rugby stadium with, I think, a few players and a pitch laid out and everything. Sounded great. They spelt his name wrong. Slightly spoilt it. I suppose you could forgive that. I haven't seen a picture of the cake, but I'm guessing maybe they went for bigger, spelt like the adjective, is that the right word? No, the word, the normal word, as opposed to big R. 8R at the end, so possibly it was, and we'll probably let them off for that, but there we go. Always a shame.
I reckon we can squeeze both in. Go on, give us a Harry Winks.
Harry Winks apparently set to keep his place in the England team on a sort of more serious sporting note. A good topic for debate, I think, and I personally think he should have been having that place in the England team for a little bit longer. I think the Rice and Henderson axis always looked a little bit lacking in creativity, lacking in confidence on the ball compared to Harry Winks. Not they're not good ball players, but apparently the players as well were really pleased with what Winks brought to the team. I know it was only Bulgaria, but I think the whole performance back to front was really strong, looked improved, looked a bit more dynamic, and I think that's what Harry Winks brings you, that desire to get on the ball, that ability to create a good angle or option for the centre-backs that maybe Rice and Henderson don't always do. I think we looked a better team with him in the side in Bulgaria. Jordan Henderson suspended for the next game as well, so you'd have thought, injury permitting, Harry Winks will start that game, might give him the chance to have a little run of games before the Euros.
We're thinking Rice, Winks, and then
it'll be
Mason
one
Mount.
of Mason Mount or Ross Barkley. They're the two
Ross Barkley was excellent,
men in possession at the moment. And the thing is, he's one of those players, I think, a rare ability to play better for England than he does for his club.
Barkley, Winks and Rice sounds like a law firm. It does, doesn't it?
He actually does.
Barkley, Winks and Rice.
Barkley, Winks and Rice. And can you also then imagine walking into said top law firm and seeing Ross Barkley, Harry Winks and Rice thinking, I want my money back already.
Guilty.
There we go.
I think that could be
footballing law firm surnames. That could be one for tomorrow.
And I'm represented by Maguire and Kane.
Yeah.
You can trust Maguire and Kane. Right, great stuff. I have enjoyed today. I hope you have too. Thank you for joining us ever. Do stay tuned because the great Martin Bell is up next. Thank you as always, producer Guy, Patrick. My name's Richard Lee. Stay tuned. 3 minutes to 10.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and